Sandra all the time is here with the cold hard truth. She's the ears and the eyes for me and you. Every day, everyone want to hear from Sandra. And every time on the air, she's getting better. Tell your sister, tell your brother, tell your mama, call Sandra in the morning and in the evening. They always calling Sandra. And when they start fighting, they calling Sandra. And
That's right, folks. Everyone is telling their mama about the cold hard truth. Welcome to another episode with more truth-telling, more problem-solving, and of course, more tea spilling than ever before. Sit back, students, grab your tea and turn up the volume because class is now in session. Call in at 936-2626 because your voice matters. Share your opinion on issues that matter the most to you. Okay, happy Tuesday. How's everybody doing? Good morning to everyone. Hope you guys are doing fantastic. Just getting Instagram started here, and then we're going to be on our way. Well, yesterday turned out to be an uber interesting day. What a heat. I tell you what. We're going to break it down for you guys this morning. I see lots of people have comments and questions and lack of understanding. And well, that's why the cold hard truth is here for you. Break it down, honey chill. I actually need to I think I better grab my laptop with some of my notes on this one because I don't want to entirely go off of memory. We do have journalist Wendy Ledger. She's going to be joining us around, I think, 8:30 time frame. So she's going to give her perspective on the McKeeva Bush case as well. Ooh, honey child. This one is definitely an interesting one. Let me put it that way. All right, let me just grab the link so that she can join the show. And then we are going to be on our way this beautiful morning. All right, 9362626, telephone number. I'm going to ask you to reserve your calls until you hear the synopsis of the case. Perhaps that would make sense. And we're going to do something today that I'm not sure that we've ever done, but I think in this situation, most certainly needs to be done. So give me 1 second and you're going to hear exactly what I mean by that. So don't forget, join the CMR channel. We did a whole thing yesterday where we advised you on how to join a channel. By the way, hello, good morning. Hi, I'm live on the radio. Oh, I'm okay. Are you trying to call the station? Uh-huh. Okay. Can you just send me the details on WhatsApp so I can have it to read more than once on the show? Just send me the time and anything else that you need people to know about. The same one that you're calling on. All righty. Oh, nice. Oh, wonderful. Okay, just send me the details. Okay, thanks. You too. Bye-bye. I need to. People be calling me. I want you to do this. I'm like, in the middle of a show, 7:30 now to 9:30, 2-hour show. All right, let's get it. And that one's an important community announcement, though, so that's fine. Just send it to me in WhatsApp. I do try to keep on top of the WhatsApp messages during the show. Mind you, now I'm checking 2 different phones during the show to try to keep up with WhatsApp messages. But anywho, oh, your computer's running low on storage space. Please, storage settings, please visit search. Oh my gosh, what a hot mess. All right, we'll get to that later on as well. Okay, so I was saying that today we're going to try to break down this McKeeva Bush rape trial. And I'm going to do something, that I have never done before, which is call for the DPP, that's the Director of Public Prosecution, to actually resign from his office. If he cares about this country, which that would be a really, 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 really big if, I'm going to suggest that he throws in the towel. I don't know who the powers that be. I guess he answers to the legal, what's that legal council called? And really, ultimately, the governor. But yeah, he should resign. His performance has been, I would not even use the term lackluster to describe what he's been up to. And this case for me was the final straw. Like, honestly, this was next level. So we're going to talk about this case, and then I'm going to tell you why I'm at the conclusion now that I think his name is Simon something or another. Why I'm now at the conclusion that he's got to go. Yeah, time for him to go. So just give me one more second here. I want to get somebody said, please remind Wendy that we're on air, no profanity. I don't think she's going to be as passionate, to be honest, about this as she was the environment, because the environment is like her baby. So I think when you talk about that, she's really, really, really up in her feelings. She comes strong and she's upset. McKeeva, meh. All right. So before we get started, allow me to say buenos dias, good morning, bonjour. What other languages can we say then? We don't want to be like John now, butchering all these foreign languages. Diamond Princess, good morning. Cece's in the house. Robert is here. Paul joining us from Bermuda. Olivia. Oh, by the way, Paul, Mr. Famous sent me a little magnet that said Bermuda on it. And thank you so much, Mr. Famous. That's MP Famous there in Bermuda. And my cousin gave it to me. Apparently she was on a recent trip there. And when she gave it to me, my daughter's like, is this a credit card? I was like, I wish. I wish somebody was just giving me a credit card to use. I said, no, it's just a refrigerator magnet. Let's stick it on the fridge. Siobhan, Olivia, Miss Aline is in the house. We got Strong Will. Whoop, whoop. It says early for class. Good, good. Siobhan. Carla Rodriguez is here. Damaris, Donna, Aliano, Charlene, Vanessa. What? Well on our way to 300 people. Keisha says, I see you. I see you too. Hi, Vanessa Scott. She says, morning. He needs to resign. All right. Well, I don't want us to confuse why I think he needs to resign, because it's you got to come with a good case. Pun intended. First Lady, Cayman Kind. Barbara Smith joining us from the UK. Aliano says, I would agree. This way the island is disseminating info into what estate it is. Raping a woman is something would keep up at night sweating bullets. Okay. All right. Marco, good morning. Miss Pat joining us. Everybody at Instagram folks, you guys are good. I see Michael over at Instagram. I see Kurna, Joan, Simply Weddings, Bonnie. Let me see Ella, Diesel, Gabby, Tony, Judith, a bunch of people over on Instagram as well. So good morning to all of you. So let's take a step back because I think we need to analyze what has happened here, right? So good morning, Miss Abby. She says, good morning, honey chill. Good morning. When I first heard these allegations, now, let me tell you something. I'm going to be very honest with you. You guys know that I am an advocate. I mean, in a big way. Oh, let me send to all these other groups. Don't forget, folks, you got to join that channel because I'm going to stop doing this group thing every day because that means I got to send it to like 5 different areas. So when, hold on now. When, I first heard the allegations, my thought was, and I was going to say that you guys know that I advocate for sexual assault victims, particularly children, but all sexual assault victims. It has got to be the most horrific thing that a person can endure in their life. One of the most horrific things for sure. And so I believe that anybody who rapes or assaults children, women, even men, because there are people who rape and assault little boys and even adult men, there's got to be a special place in hell for people like you. Over the weekend, I had a young lady who was sending me messages from a guy from West Bay, fancies himself to be a gangster, who actually raped her, him and his homies, I guess. And the dude has the audacity to be putting these messages. I don't know if that was WhatsApp or I don't think it was WhatsApp. It might have been like Facebook or Instagram, but he was communicating with her and basically bragging about sexually assaulting her. I mean, it's unbelievable. You know, restraining her, holding her down because she was intoxicated in some way. I guess they thought that they could do whatever they wanted to her. This is the reality of what happens in this country and all over the world, quite frankly, and it's absolutely horrific. And for someone to have the audacity to then think they can sexually assault you and brag about it because they don't feel like anything's going to happen to them is like next level crazy, right? It's really, really difficult for victims to come forward. I mean, they tell me all the time there is the stigma in communities, especially small communities like Cayman. You know, a lot of people still very much victim blame. What was she wearing? What did she do? You know, why would this person have been attracted to her? And the more high profile the individual is, the worse it is in terms of those types of additional victimizations that often happens with victims. Children, you know, I remember this community going hard at that little girl when she recorded, what's his name again? The ex-fireman and ex-political wannabe. Is it James? What's his last name again? Oh, Lord. Anyway, the one where his whole family was supporting him and the young lady recorded what he did. Thank God for that recording, because that sealed the case, right? Webster. What, not James. What's his name? Arrington Webster. Thank you, Carla. Yeah, that dude is sick. And he was grooming these girls, giving them presents and all kind of stuff. And I'm sure she's not the only victim of his. But I remember how hard you guys were going at that teenage victim. Well, you know, what's she doing recording it for? And she must have wanted it. She's so fast. And y'all know me. When I hear those things, I shut down those conversations because that's absolutely ridiculous. Okay. So a lot of times I follow, and everybody at court knows that I follow these cases with a degree of keen interest. If they see that I missed a case, they're like, hey, Sandy, all the security guards at the courthouse, everybody's like, hey, did you see that case coming up? You better go watch it. You know, and I'm like, okay, let me see if I can get there. Because victims need a voice. They need to understand that, you know, they need to understand that they can and will be supported by this community. When I first heard it, the allegation, I thought to myself, okay, I don't swear for nobody. Anything is certainly possible. Unfortunately for Mr. Bush, he does have a particular reputation. I mean, we can call a spade, and we're going to be honest, right? He has a reputation for being too touchy-feely when he's had too much to drink. Could that translate into a full-blown sexual assault? I don't know. You know, I can't swear for him, definitely not for him. You know, he doesn't know what's always appropriate when he's had one too many drinks, and his behavior has been, in my opinion, when you go around sucking on people and biting people and stuff, that amounts to, at the very least, assault, common assault, if not sexual assault. Now, I don't know if when you start to suck on somebody's hand and on their neck and you kissing them, if that's an arousal thing for him, or if he's just like the world's worst drunk who likes to, you know, do those types of things to women that he doesn't really know. So I thought to myself, everyone knows who has done any sort of research on this topic that there are victims who wait. They're victims who never tell. I mean, never. They take it to the grave. I know a young lady. She's from another country. She lives in Cayman. And one day I was talking to her and she said to me, she said, Sandy, you know, I was molested as a child. And I said, wow, really? Beautiful young lady and everything. And she said, yeah, but she said, you know, I would never, ever publicly disclose this or anything or go to court because my parents would feel that it was their fault because this is someone that they trusted, most likely in the family. I can't remember her saying it was an uncle, but I kind of feel like it might have been an uncle or someone who acted like an uncle, like really close to the family. And so she said, yeah, you know, my parents, this would devastate my parents. I'm thinking, wow, she's thinking more about her parents and getting justice or, you know. The one thing I want to say is normally these people don't stop. So the number one reason you come forward is not even about punishing them and retribution. It is to stop them from accumulating a lifelong list of victims because they continue, right? Unless they are stopped. They're like serial killers. They don't normally just stop on their own. They might take a little break here and there, but they're going to continue, especially the ones that focus on children and young teenagers and stuff, they will continue. Look, even Renato, that dude, had the audacity to be whispering to people in court that, well, she's not the first one that I did this to, but yeah, these old African people. Well, she's Canadian, but Black people is what he said, not African, but Black people. She's the first Black person I did it to. I do it to Spanish women all the time. I mean, he holds Spanish women down. He makes sure they're intoxicated. He drugs them and then basically rapes them. And he admitted to it. This is something he does all the time. No one has ever complained. No one has ever gone to the police. So these people do not stop. This is a type of offense that, you're more likely to commit over and over again if you're getting away with it, right? So that, in my mind, and obviously, if you're a rape victim, I don't mean any insult to you in any way, shape, or form, but that's, in my mind, is the reason why you come forward, because you need to stop these people dead in their tracks from accumulating other victims, right? But that's a very personal thing for victims, whether or not they come forward, because the process is not going to be easy. You're going to have to give police statements. You're going to have to be interviewed. You're going to have to be cross-examined. All of this type of stuff, it's very, very serious, right? So anytime someone says to me, this happened to me, I was assaulted, I was raped, I mean, you can't say anything more serious to me, really, because all of a sudden I'm like all ears. What, how, what, do you need help? What can I do? So, I ride for victims. I think everybody knows that without failure. But you can't ride for victims who are not credible, who are not believable. And when it's 20-something years later, evidence does become a problem. Now, time in and of itself is not a reason for people to say, well, this never happened. Why did she wait? I hate when people say, why did she wait all this time? Victims, like I said, some victims never tell. They go an entire lifetime and they hold this burden on themselves. There are victims who do come forward. Sometimes you see the snowball effect of it with celebrities. Harvey Weinstein, what's that other sicko one called? Oh God. The African-American singer, he's in jail now. That they actually had him on tape urinating on an underage girl, and he still got away with this all those years ago. What's his name again? Not Keith Sweat. Oh God. Y'all know who I'm talking about. Anyway, him, Bill Cosby. I believe that all of these guys have used R. Kelly. Thank you, Johan. All these guys have used position, power, money, enablers around them to get away with this for decades. R. Kelly has been doing it from day one. If you sat down and you watched Exposing R. Kelly or whatever the heck it was called, trust me, this dude is next level sick, and he's been getting away with it because he had money. If he was a regular Black Joe in a regular neighborhood, they would have grabbed him after the first assault, right? But when you have position and money, you are in a different league normally with all offenses. And this, you have to be careful with this, because this means that someone can get away with things just because of who they are. So on the one hand, justice is supposed to be blind. Lady Justice, you see her with her little scale. She has on blindfolds. She's supposed to be blind, which means that she does not see anything, right? She doesn't see someone's color, their position, how much bank account money they have. But the reality of it is that's actually not true at all. That's theoretically, Lady Justice is blind. What really happens is money, position, prestige gets you good legal counsel. I mean, the best that money can buy. And if you have a good lawyer, they can work it. They know what to do. It affords you, jurors who might be sympathetic towards who you are, because they're like, oh man, Bill Cosby, he's everybody's dad, because he's created this persona through the Cosby Show that you could never believe that this man would be capable of drugging and assaulting women. McKeeva Bush is, no, man, my whole family has known McKeeva my entire life. So these are elements of these types of cases that add a very different complexity to the situation. Good morning, Miss Yurleen. And it's difficult, right? You know that jurors are human beings, and they go in there with preconceived notions about sometimes the case, although the judge will instruct them, anything that you might have heard about this case, put it out of your mind. You need to look at the evidence that is before you and nothing else. But we're all human beings. There are those of you who feel, somebody was saying to me yesterday, oh, this woman in the comment section cussing McKeeva, she wouldn't have been a good juror because she obviously feels very, very strong about McKeeva Bush. And there are people who are very sympathetic towards McKeeva Bush. He's like a Trump to them. He could murder somebody and y'all would still be like, nope, he's next to God. Where I stand, nobody has that kind of power over me. I mean, when I say nobody, I mean nobody, right? Nobody gets a pass in life because of who they are for me, right? I don't judge. I'm like, okay, you said this person did this. Let's see the evidence. Let's talk about it. And so even with the McKeeva Bush case, I'm thinking in the back of my head, this must have been one of these situations where, this happened a long time ago, but maybe she has some sort of current day evidence on Mr. Bush. Because, like I said, some of these perpetrators, they believe they are above the law. So maybe she WhatsApped him and said, remember that night when you raped me? And he was like, yeah, what about it? What's the big deal? Or whatever. This is what I was thinking when I first heard it. I'm like, is there some sort of evidence that is fresh and new that has come forward? I always said this could not be a he said, she said type of case from 20-something years ago. In law, you need to have what's called corroborating evidence, right? Even if it's a sexual assault, well, things like, did you tell someone at the time of the assault? That becomes important. Because here she is coming forward, 20-something years later. But if she told someone that night, that year, that month, whatever, then it's like, what are the chances that she's lying if she's told people? Right? So that's one of the important questions that she kept getting drilled with. And we're going to go through some of the details of this case here in just a second. I must tell you that when I showed up to court and I discovered that there was no such corroboration, I was really flabbergasted. Because there are cases that set a country and situations back just as long as this accusation was 20-something years. And that's exactly what this case has done for rape victims. I am very, very concerned that the DPP's office decided to pursue this case because they have done more harm to every single victim out there than not. I am so disappointed. And the head of the DPP, what's his name, Simon Davis, they actually brought in a KC at our expense. He would even try this himself. He needs to go. If the governor is listening to this show this morning, I don't know if she is or not, and the entire whatever council that hires him, let me tell you something. Do this man a favor. Call him in and give him the opportunity to resign. That would be your best bet. Because I have no confidence in him. And by extension, I have no confidence in the DPP's office. Now, this says a lot. As someone who has been dragged through the ringer by the DPP's office, right? I have never, generally speaking, say that I have zero confidence in the DPP's office. I might say, hey, this particular case, they mishandled. They have an axe to grind with me. I know that. And so they do a lot of next level foolishness when it comes to bringing charges. Remember, I've been hauled up, ironically, More times than McKeeva Bush, I've been hauled up in court. And 99% of those have been thrown out before they've never gotten to a jury. They've been thrown out because the judge is like, there's no case to answer here. You can imagine? They run the gamut with me. And still, I have never said, not once, that I have lost complete confidence in the DPP's office. What I may have said is, specific to my case, like, they didn't have a case. That's why the judge threw it out at the no case submission. How can I stand up and beat the DPP's office? I'm not a qualified lawyer. The first case I won, I had a law degree, but I hadn't even done the PPC. So from the perspective of, procedure and evidence and how to ask questions, I had no clue. Back then, I didn't even used to go to court. And yet I stood up and defended myself successfully in a dog theft case, to have the acting magistrate said this is the worst waste of money that he's ever seen. And yet, I have never said that I have zero confidence in the DPP's office. And I'm standing here today to tell you that I have zero confidence in the DPP's office. This was just the icing on the cake. This was just the straw that broke the camel's back. It has been an accumulation of a lot of things: internal mismanagement of staff, alleged prejudices within his staff, right? And the mismanagement of numerous cases that should have been won by the DPP's office, or rulings that should have never been made. And this is a ruling that should have never been made. This case should have never gone to trial. You had nothing. You didn't have a credible witness even. The fact that he made the decision to make this go to trial. At one point, he came in for all of 5 minutes and sat there, saw how poorly it was going, and then got up and left. I was like, oh, this is rich. You should be forced to sit here and watch this train wreck of a case that you decided. Then you hire a KC. KCs don't go for cheap, right? I mean, I don't know what the going rate is for them these days, but I'm sure it's thousands of dollars a day. We need to do an FOI and how much money he has wasted bringing in KCs for cases that under no circumstances can they win. Good morning, caller.
Morning, and to Sunday, quote Casey, end of quote. I'm quoting someone.
Yes.
I agree with you. He should resign. And if he doesn't resign, the governor should resign, because she's responsible for good governance, and this is certainly not good governance. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. And I'm going to talk about me calling for his resignation, because Mr. Bush, I see, says that he's going to be calling for motion. Now, listen to me. Let me say something about McKeeva Bush. Mac, sometimes you need to shut up and know when to stay out of your own way. You're your worst enemy, And the winning of this case yesterday has now emboldened and made Mr. Mac feel like he's on cloud nine and he's brave. I'm going to make a suggestion to you. And this is where I say to people, some people are like, oh, Sandy. One day we were at court, and I was outside talking to one of my cousins was there, and she's a McKeeva Bush supporter. And, she wanted to be there for him. And I was there talking to them, and he was there. And listen, I ain't got no time for no foolishness with people. Y'all know this already. I have tried talking to McKeeva Bush. Him and I have never been close friends or anything like that. He's given me counsel. I've tried to give him counsel. I've told him, dude, you're an alcoholic. You need to leave liquor alone. Alcoholism kills people and it destroys people's lives. And it brings out the worst in you for sure. And if you can't see that after all these years at your age, you got a real problem. And there's a lot of enablers around him who like to encourage him to do foolishness, right? So I don't have any hate towards Mr. Bush, and I don't have any love towards Mr. Bush. I'm very, very indifferent towards him. Now, I have tried to hold him accountable, as I have all MPs in this country, right? And so I know he's upset with me because I've tried to do that, and he thinks that I hate him, whatever. I don't really care. It's not going to do one nothing to me. I don't really care what McKeeva thinks. So we were standing there talking, And one of his supporters said to me, "Oh, but Sandy, this case is so ridiculous. And you know what? This could be you. This could be you." And I said, "Have you not been paying attention, woman?" I said, "This has been me. We all agree that this case was burning up in flames." And I said, "You've not been paying attention. This has been me. How many countless times have the DPP drugged me through the ringer, them and the police in conjunction with each other, and never even had a case?" But that does not mean, let me be very, very clear. That does not mean that if tomorrow he assaults someone and they decide to take him to court, that we give him a pass saying, well, he just got away from this rape case. Every case has to stand on its own merits. And if the DPP's office has an issue with people, which I'm now going to say that it's entirely possible, as I believe that they have with me, at some point, a person like me is going to stand up, lawyer up, and sue them for malicious prosecution. That's what you do. So as an aside, when I was standing there, I heard Mr. Bush say, "Oh yeah, Sandy hates me. Sandy don't like me." I did not even respond or acknowledge his comment. I just looked at him. Someone said to me recently that somebody in his group was claiming that, oh, they were going to lunch and I want to go to lunch with them. Honey child, let me just stop y'all in your tracks, right? Those of you who love the ground that Mac walk on and he can't do nothing wrong, please understand the following. I'm not one of those people. I'm not a turncoat, cutthroat, whatever you want to call it. I am loyal to my beliefs and doing right and wrong, not individuals. That's why I can stand here and call out anybody, family members, whomever, and it has nothing to do with the person really in that sense. I don't care. And I'm not gonna curry favor, oh, Mr. Mac winning his case now. I gotta go sit down and have lunch with him, please. You know what I did that day? I went to Coffee Point and sat down and ordered a salad and a quiche and sat down and had lunch all by myself because I love my own company, right? I'm not running for political office. Y'all listen to me carefully now. I don't need anybody like McKeeva Bush to like me. I don't need an Alden McLaughlin to like me. I don't need Julianne O'Connor to like me. I don't care. I'm not looking for friends. My friendship card is all stamped up and completely full. Let me just get that out of the way. Now, what happened in this case, why it went up in flames? I'm going to give you all an example. As we were watching the AB interview, which is like the best evidence interview, right? So when someone makes an allegation, the police will do an interview and they're going to interview the person, what happened, how it happened, try to get as much details out of them as possible. So in this case, they had a man and woman interviewing the victim. Now, the victim is politically connected. So of course, Mr. Bush wanted to make this defense that somebody was targeting him politically. I don't believe that. I think that this woman has some mental health issues. This is the conclusion that I came to. I'm not sure if she realizes that she was outright if she was outright lying, or she's just displacing, like her grasp of reality is so thin that she's displacing something else, confusing it with Mr. Bush. And I'm going to tell you why I say that here in a second. So during her interview, her police interview, I sat there and I watched the whole thing. She, this is a video recording. She, when she first started talking about it, she would do something like this. And you got to excuse me for being a bit dramatic, but I'm trying to give y'all an example of exactly how it happened. Right? Started screaming and crying. I mean, screaming at the top of her lungs. Very theatrical. And I'm not saying one way or the other. Those were raw and real emotions. Let me say that. Someone, without a doubt, sexually molested or raped this woman. That's not a question. Yes, caller. Hi. Yeah, if you're calling the show, 936-2626. Okay, darling, thanks. One thing I noticed with, somebody reminds me, ABE is achieving best evidence. So that's the interview. One thing I must say is WhatsApp web doesn't allow me to take calls. So let me pull up the PC app. So listen, No doubts about it. This woman was sexually assaulted, and she actually admits to that later on. But when I first saw this part of the interview, I thought, all right, let me see what's going on here. So, she starts crying, and they have to take a break and all this kind of stuff. I thought, okay, you cannot be persuaded by a alleged victim that is very, very emotional, because some people are just drama queens. They're dramatic. They get emotional over any and everything. That can't persuade you. You've got to still sit there and look at the evidence of what is actually before you and what's going on. So they did the interview. There were things that I found bizarre in terms of details, right? There were details from 20-something years ago that she claims that she could remember. And then other things about the actual assault and things leading up to it that not only could she not remember, but when asked, because then they bring her live on the stand, because the prosecution has to have a live witness. The defense has a right to cross-examine her. She got very, very defensive. I mean, defensive to the point where a good deal of her evidence on cross-examination was arguing with the KC from the other side. I was shocked at that, right? I know my rights and you're not going to do it. I mean, I thought to myself, wow, she doesn't really appear to be someone who would even wait 20-something years to come forward with this type of allegation. Oh, I'm an advocate and I know the law and I have a paralegal degree, which I don't think she actually does. But anyway, she claims that she has one. And, I know my rights and you can't talk to me like this. And to the point where the judge was like, ma'am, just answer the question. If you guys could see the expression on the judge's face, he had this smirk on his face the whole time thinking, what the fudge am I doing here? You know what I'm saying? Even the judge was like, I looked at body language. Listen, you can't hide certain things that you're thinking. There were members of the jury, at least 3 of them, all women, who were sitting there at points laughing at her. They were not laughing with her. They were laughing at her. This is a very serious case. But her evidence was so lacking. Her testimony so unbelievable. I was literally floored. This is who you put up as a witness? And these were things that, in my opinion, should have been evident during, if you're a seasoned interviewer for the police, right? They should have been evidence during that initial interrogation. What is interrogation? No, interrogation. What the hell? The word isn't coming to my brain. Hold on. Yeah, interrogation. My apologies. I was putting emphasis on the wrong part of the syllabi in the word. All right, interrogation. It was horrible. When she couldn't answer a question, that's when the theatrics started. That's when the crying started. And they had to take so many breaks. At one point, the defense attorney was like, I was supposed to be finished with you this morning, but you keep stopping. Basically, he's like, you keep stopping the trial because every time he put a question to you that you cannot answer, here comes the crying or the arguments or the wanting to fight with the fight with the defense attorney. No, sir. I never seen no case like this in my life. Trust me. Now, a person's credibility when they are a defendant is significant and important. And so they look at different things that are related to, the situation, and they're going to test you on your credibility. So I'm going to give you a couple examples of where she was completely found to be an uncredible witness. Good morning, caller.
Morning, Auntie Sandy. It's Johan. How's it going?
Hey, Johan. Not bad. How are you?
Just a quick observation, Auntie Sandy. Nothing like what you're describing has ever happened to me, so I can't feel it. But I know people that have been subjected to all manner of abuse, sexual, physical, the whole 9 yards. And I would just say, this situation is different. You have your opinions. A lot of people have their opinions. But unless we have experienced what those persons have gone through and the traumatic history that it leaves them or experience it leaves them with, we should be careful with how we judge. I'm not saying I never went to court. I don't know anything about the trial, but I don't think we should make light of the significant long-term effects that any traumatic experience, sexual or physical, otherwise has on anybody, especially women, because that could be any of us or any of the people that we love, our sisters, our mothers, our aunts, our friends, whatever. So I would just say, make your point, but the woman went through some shit in life that I will never understand, and a lot of us won't. So let's catch her a break because she has to live in this community with us. And
thank you, Johan.
You're right about
yes.
No,
Yeah.
You're right about the BPP. At some point, there has to be some sort of. If y'all can't solve cases from 2 weeks and 2 months ago, how are you gonna solve a case from 20 years ago without sufficient evidence? That's just basic stuff. So that's all I'll say. But keep doing your thing. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
All right. So here's the thing, right? You can have people who are victimized, and this is why I'm going to get to that here in a second. But the case that is before us is about her allegations on a specific night, specific date and time against McKeeva Bush. This isn't about her having mental health issues. This isn't about her being traumatized otherwise by somebody else. You do not make allegations against someone that are not true, can't be substantiated in any way, shape, or form. You're not credible, you're not believable. And then you think that that case can move forward. This is why there is a DPP's office, because they have to know, they have to be able to look at a witness and say, is this woman credible? Is what we've heard credible? It's not uncommon. In this case, they did the same thing. You do your initial interview and then they have questions. You're like, this doesn't make any sense. How did this happen? How did that happen? You go back and ask additional questions. You get additional statements, basically, to try to fill in the gaps. My point is, there were too many gaps in this story and none of it was credible. Don't feel any way about this, that I'm telling you that this witness was not a credible witness, right? That doesn't undermine rape victims. And in fact, in a lot of countries, people who make false allegations find themselves on the other side of the law. So don't meddle your feelings. Like I said, that's why I wanted to preface. I ride for victims like nobody else. But I can't ride for someone who wasn't a victim in this case, but said that she was. And my belief, this is my belief, because I did sit there and I did hear the evidence. She is not a victim of that incident that she claims happened in that night back in 1999. It never happened. And I'm going to continue to tell y'all why. Number one, the defense discredited her about a lot of stuff. And it was so obvious that she was lying. First of all, let me say this. I've had some interactions with this person. Let me put this out there. I have had some interactions with this person myself, and I have found them to be a pathological liar. Despite that, I went in with a very open mind with this situation. I have cut off contact with this person because she seems to fabricate stories. Now, I'm not going to go into any details about the stories that she fabricated in relation to the limited interaction that she's had with me, but I know that she's fabricated stories, right? I have simply said to her, woman, you got issues. And at my stage in life, at my age in life, I ain't got no time for no Johnny come lately with issues. If me and you've been friends forever and we've been riding, I can give you a little bly, you got issues, but we can still ride a little bit together. I don't even know you like that. Don't take up any space in my head, in my WhatsApp messages, in my text messages, nothing else. I have literally gone and blocked this woman on Facebook. She had 2 YouTube channels following me. I blocked both of them. I blocked her on WhatsApp. I blocked her from texting me. She can't call me. If I'm walking the street, honey child, you walk on the next side of the street. I not got a time for you. She has a problem with telling the truth. Now, I was hoping that in this case, this was the truth. Nobody believes her, not even her own family members. Y'all don't understand how bad this is. I have a voice note, and I'm not going to play it, from one of her own family members who said this, blah, blah, blah. This was an aunt, is a liar. She's a pathological liar. That never happened. Her own mother, she sat on the stand and threw her mother under the bus as being a horrible woman, a horrible person, which I'm not saying whether she is or not. Clearly, the mother failed her kids. She was an alcoholic. She had problems, whatever, always hanging out in the bar. And that's how this whole allegation started, is she claimed that she was going to pick up her mother from the bar one night, and Alden and McKeeva Bush just happened to be there. And, you know, the defense was like, we don't think that event ever happened. The mom is like, you know, the mom refused to take the stand, by the way, for the prosecution. She told them that in order for her to take the stand, they would have had to arrest her because she was not coming. Now, you stick a pin right there, honey child. You know, if anybody assaulted my daughter, I don't care if I was an alcoholic or a drug addict. If I had something that would help the case, I'm going to be there. Good morning, caller. Hello? Hello? You can't be calling me with that air when I'm in the middle of a show now. So, you know, oh, is this guy trying to get in? Hold on. Oh, yeah. I think Marlon just opened the door for him. Anyway, I'm going to be there for my daughter if I got something that can help the prosecution. Her mother refused to come to court. There's just so much that was unbelievable about this. So listen. Something happened to her. It is evident from the emotional outburst. And the other thing that struck me as peculiar is during her ABE, she kept obsessing about how fat he was. Okay. So again, as someone who's had the opportunity to, you know, speak to a lot of victims, she was like, he was just so fat. He was fat, just fat and slobbering all over me. Like, they would ask her questions about, okay, how did he take your clothes off? You said you were wearing jeans at night. How did he actually take your clothes off? She's never been able to answer that question. Right? If he's so fat, how did he get down on the ground and pull you down on the ground? Like, none of it made any sense. Right? You came from the driver's side, came around, he made you come out, whatever, pulled you down, raped you. We don't know how he got your clothes off. And then both of you get back in the car, and then he gives you directions on how to find his house. And then somebody picks you up afterwards in your car and takes you back. You know, I'm sorry, but so many questions, so many things that did not make any logical sense whatsoever. But one thing that was obvious, somebody sexually assaulted and raped this girl. And I'm thinking, this is actually childhood trauma. This happened to her when she was a child. And the person, McKeeva Bush, reminds her of that person. That person, because she also obsessed about how small she was. But in a way that when you listen to it, it's almost like she was reverting back to being a child. She kept talking about, I was so small, I was so small, I was so small. And I thought to myself, she's not talking about small as an adult, because supposedly at the time of this incident, she would have been in her 20s with 2 children. And she is a petite person even now. I mean, even if she was 10 pounds lighter, but the way she described it, I even said to Wendy's going to be coming on here in a second. I even said to Wendy, she was a child when this stuff happened to her. And whoever that person was, in the mind of a child, he was big and fat and slobbering all over her. Listen, say the defense, that police said, well, what color was the car? He was just fat. He was just fat and slobbering all over me. I was like, answer the question. You've got to be able to answer the question. The fact that the DPP would watch that video and go, oh God, this is gonna go up in major flames. I'm shocked. They saw this coming. They just wanted to waste some time and energy on Mr. Bush in this particular case. This does not exonerate anything Mr. Bush has done. This does not mean that he has done wrong in other situations, of course. But that jury had one job to do, and that was to look at this witness, look at the case, look at all the evidence presented to them, and make a decision based on this. They talked to her, asked her, interrogated her, I should say, about her political ambitions, and she lied. I know the first question they put to her, which was like, you know, do you have any political ambitions? Have you ever declared or said to anyone that you want to run? And she said no. I was like, why are you lying? You don't lie about the simple stuff, because then they're going to say you are lying about everything else. Why would you lie about that? Yeah, I want to run for office. So what? That should have been your response. Now, the irony of it is, when she said that, I was like, Jesus Christ. This person has been on my show in the comment section. It was easy to prove, saying that she is going to run for political office. How can you get in a court of law and sit there on the stand and say no? And then they pressed her. Well, have you ever met with Roy McTaggart about your interest in potentially running with the PPM administration? No. What do you mean my intentions to run? Like she started asking the defense question. He's like, ma'am, if you continue your legal studies, maybe one day you'll be up here and you can ask somebody questions. Right now, it's for me to ask you questions and you just need to answer the question. She would deny stuff and then realize, oh, they must have a statement from him. They've spoken to him. And then she'd have to kind of like, well, what I mean is, no, honey child, if you never met with him about running for political office, then you say yes or no. You don't go, well, we talked about other stuff. Come on now. What kind of BS this is? You just said no. You did not meet with him and you did not have that conversation. Miss Donna, I don't want you to make those comments here, because we have not said, I'm going to delete that comment before anybody else reads it, because we have not said who she is and we have no intentions of naming her. And by extension, we will not be naming any family members in relation to her. So I would invite you to not probably make any comments in relation to this matter at all, since you're connected. Just bear with me, please. We're not trying to make her feel bad, because I do think that she's a victim. Later on in her evidence, she does admit actually to being molested and probably raped by someone as a child, maybe even as an adult. The other thing that was evident is that she blames her mother for a lot of her issues. She talked about how horrible of a person her mother is. And that was interesting, because a lot of it turns out, probably has to do with, you know, when people have mama and dada issues, they do a lot of interesting things. Yes. She talked about, and I found it so sad, in fact, about how much her mother hates her. And she's always treated me like nobody. She's always treated me like nothing. She hates me. That's why she didn't believe me. That's why, you know, she had recorded her mother in a conversation, which I don't know if the mother knows that she was being recorded. I guess not. And then she gave that to court to say, hey, it was weird how she did it, because what she would do is she would go back and say to people, oh, don't you remember when I told you this back when? And then they would say, no, but that isn't what you told me. You told me that you were assaulted by somebody, or maybe someone important, but you never said that this person was a politician. Just as an example, right? You never said that it was a politician. You certainly never named the person. So years after telling someone something, she tried to jog their memory about what was said, but then did it in such a way that they were like, but no, that isn't what was said. So it was very, even the people that the prosecution called as her witnesses on the prosecution side of the table were not very good witnesses for her, because they're like, well, I don't recall. I mean, it's been a minute now, but I don't recall her saying any of that. That's not what happened. So different. I have no doubt that she was victimized. Okay. I have no doubt that she hates her mom and she believes that whatever happened to her, the mother had a role to play in this. Whether the mother, she said her mother was an alcoholic, she struggled with these issues. It's entirely possible that, I don't know. I mean, I sat there wondering myself, is this a situation where maybe the mom left her with the uncle who, had access to her? And it was the uncle who was big, fat, slobbery that did this to her. I don't know. All of those things, to be quite frank and honest, are speculation on my part. Yeah. What I do know without fear of contradiction is something happened to her. Something horrific happened to her, and she can't process it. What I also believe in my heart of hearts is the incident that she is hyper-focused on and the individual that she's hyper-focused on, which is McKeeva Bush, never happened. Not on that day. I don't know if it was some other time. If she was, begging Mr. Bush for money over the years, and one day he can get a little feel, a little squeeze, whatever. I can't say, I can't speak to any of that. The specific allegations that she was making, I do not believe. There were too many inconsistencies. There were too many moments when asked a question, you could remember certain things, which would be very detailed. And then when asked a pressing question because your story don't make no sense, all of a sudden you're like, I can't remember. Wendy Ledger is going to be jumping on here. We're going to get Wendy's take on this here in just a second. It was kind of sad actually to see. They even discredited her because she claims that she was a member. Here's another simple example. She claims that she's a member of a bar association. Now, there's only certain ways you can become a member of a bar association. So she claimed that she's a member of a bar association, and they say, well, we've contacted that bar association. They've never heard of you. Where did I say that? Well, did you not have it like in print, posted somewhere? No, I don't know anything about that. So we can get it for you. Take a little break, get the evidence. Here you go. Black and white. Did you write that? Well, yeah, it looks like something I would have written. And this context, blah, 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 blah. And then eventually you go from saying, I didn't ever say that, I didn't write that, to having it right in front of you. And then you go, oh, well, that was because I was a student member. Listen, if someone says to you, were you claim in your biography that you're a member of this bar association, were you ever a member? You have two answers. No, yes, and one with an explanation. Yes, I was a student member. So she said that she never wrote it initially. Then when the evidence was presented to her, oh, okay, that. Not to say that all these years later, your memory might, have people's memories. But then you argue that although you said you are a member of a bar association, that is somehow the same thing as a student member. No, it's not. Students don't get a student member. You might get access to certain things, but you're not a member of the bar association. And they contacted the bar association in the States. You know what I think happened? I'm going to ask Wendy this question. I think that unfortunately, she latched on to Mr. Bush as she has other people who she thinks are people of like significance and prominence. And in her mind, she has weaved this story together. Like I said, I don't know if it's an intentional weaving, if it was deliberate, or it was just because of the previous trauma, she's confused, right? And somehow she thinks that this event happened. I can tell you that she has told people, I see Rocky says she always being a wannabe lawyer. She's actually told people that she is a lawyer. And you know the amount of times I've had to correct people come, no, Miss Sandy, yeah, I know you're a lawyer. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I have a law degree. That does not make me a lawyer. I've represented myself in court. That does not make me a lawyer. There's only certain ways that you can be called a lawyer. And if you're not a lawyer, you're not a lawyer. Good morning, caller.
Good morning.
Morning.
Is this Miss Sandy?
Hi. Yes, it is.
Okay. Good morning again.
Morning.
Listen, Miss Sandy,
Mm-hmm.
I am happily to listen
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of persons do not understand and will never get it. It's when a person have motive, they will go the extra mile with others against you. And I am glad to see how it's working out, because I can tell you, if I was rich, what I would have the right and proper lawyer to certain things. And I am happy that you stand your ground. And you know what I admire about you? You are not partial with nothing. You listening?
Yes, ma'am.
And you stand your ground, and you are not biased. Continue on that path. This young lady was just an imposter as well. The one was here, done me. And any day I can sit with you, I will have the evidence to show you certain things. Because the police station not doing anything when it comes on to making a report. And it goes up to DPP. I want to talk to you about some things I experienced. And that's what Mr. McKeeva experienced. But guess what? It's when God in the vessel, you smile at any storm. Any storm. And I would say this comes out to light to expose a lot of them. A lot of them in the bad way and a lot of them in the good way. Because I'm sure that you see the ones who stand their ground in the right and proper manner, sit and said, okay, no, we must listen. Don't care who the person is. Listen to what the person's saying and act in the right manner, and don't work off of accusation.
Okay, leave us there. Thank you so much.
And that's what exposed them. God bless you, and just continue to do your work.
Thank you so much.
And
I appreciate it.
For Mr. McKeeva.
Thank you very much. All right, we've got Wendy. Good morning, Wendy Ledger. Did you leave your potty mouth behind? That's the first question.
Really, Sandra, you have to ask that question. Of course not. Yeah, no, I didn't, but I'll try my best. Can I do a pre-apology? And there are certain words that I just don't consider cursing that you do.
I know, but you know, it's not up to you. It's up to the Christian premier, I guess.
You're not a Christian radio station, though, are you? Kenmore Road, a Christian radio station? This is news to me. I thought write a story about that.
Definitely not, but you know, Bobo has the license, not me. So you know, she's always pressuring. These people are always pressuring off reg. So let's just keep it on the up and up. You use acronym. I say, what the fuck?
Very best. But I don't feel this is not. We're not going to be discussing the environment this morning, so I probably won't get.
You know what is so funny? That's what I said. I said I don't think Wendy's going to get particularly emotional about this because this isn't about a tree.
No, it's not. No.
So she'll be just fine. All right, Wendy.
Yeah, I should be all right. Yeah.
Talking about this case, it was such an interesting case. Give us a little brief synopsis of overall what you thought as you sat there and you listened. I know you were there for most of it. You listened to the ABE, the police interview. You listened to the cross-examination of the complainant. What was your takeaway from all of this?
I felt it was a terrible case for them.
And somebody said no calls while Wendy's on. Okay.
No, I felt it was a terrible case for the prosecution to have brought. I know it is terribly difficult in the modern world that we live in, and the Me Too movement, and the need to hear women and to understand the kind of garbage that we go through in life, as you know, throughout our lives, and how we're sort of conditioned not to complain about, you know, sexual abuse, which is things that are now considered sexual abuse that used to happen in the workplace when I was younger, when I first started on Fleet Street, where it was just perfectly normal for men to treat women as objects of ridicule and foolery. And then, you know, that goes one step further. You also get a lot of, and whilst men may no longer twang our bra straps in the workplace, I think, you know, we still have a long way to go to get the kind of acceptance that we need. But this is a different situation here. Whatever happened to the victim, it is clear that she is painfully traumatized by some kind of sexual abuse, and I am not taking away anything from what she said and what her story is.
Yeah,
it is clear that there is something there, but whether it happened in the way that she described or with the person that she accused, it remains an open question. But none of that really matters in terms of bringing that case. It was impossible for McKeeva Bush to properly defend himself, because he couldn't, with them not being able to pin down even a vague date, or even to be more specific about the event at which would have sealed the deal for her if there'd have been a way to find. But he was not able to defend himself properly, because he couldn't have an idea of where was it. He couldn't present an alibi, one of the most important ways, especially because the police don't investigate the non-part. They investigate what the person has said, but they don't investigate. But I've very rarely seen a case in the court where the police have actually gone to look for innocence of the person that they've arrested. So consequently, it's as much as you are supposedly, you know, innocent until proven guilty, you often actually do have to prove that you were somewhere else in order to get out of an accusation of a crime that you didn't commit. And I think someone like McKeeva Bush, and you and I would be the same, Sandra, even if we can't remember what happened 20 years ago. We've got agendas, we've got notebooks, we've got things that would help us remember where we were at and to pin down dates more specifically. And I think, you know, I am absolutely sure that McKeeva Bush would have been able to do that had there been a specific date. And if he hadn't, then you're into a different kind of territory. And that's the point. Either on one side or the other, the case would have swung either in favor of the victim or in favor of Mr. Bush not being prosecuted in the first place. If he'd have been able to say, well, listen, I was in Tampa, or I was, you know, I was at a political gathering in West Bay on that night.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that the victim couldn't say really what month, what date.
He was given a 6-year span when he was first arrested. This is what they made a big song and dance about him not really answering any questions when he was interviewed by the police in the first instance. But he was arrested and then given a 6-year span as to when he was. And it's just insane, because how do you answer that? How? Because somebody said to me, "Oh, 6 years ago, Wendy, you did this." And 20 years ago, over a 6-year period,
is
you
Wendy
did this.
freezing for everybody else, or is that just me? I'm going to try my other network here in a second.
Am I still here?
Yeah. So sorry, you were freezing for me. So you were saying that initially,
he was given a 6-year period when it could have happened. I mean, that's insane. Like, how are you supposed to answer that? I wouldn't have answered any questions either. I would have told them you've been ridiculous. How can I possibly answer that? It's, you know, I have no memory of the thing that you're telling me, and you're not even giving me a vague idea, so I could go back and look into my, you know, my calendars, my agendas, what I was doing. I would be able to supply a vague, you know, like I would be able to say, well, okay, that particular week, I know we were, you know, there was a lot going on, the Legislative Assembly was on, so I was probably working late, and you'd be able to see, I would know. Oh, well, I would have been sitting on a computer watching that somewhere, or I would have been in the house, depending on when it was. So he was given, and that's why I feel it was a weak case to bring. I understand there is a temptation to want to bring what appears to be a straightforward accusation. And there's no doubt that when she spoke about those, I mean, you know, they argued, the Bush legal team argued that it was histrionics. I'm not so sure that it was. To me, that was something that had happened to her.
It came from somewhere. Even if it was histrionics,
I'm just not convinced that it was necessarily him. or that it was in those specific circumstances.
Yeah.
But
we have a caller. One second, Wendy. Let's pause. Caller, good morning.
Hi, good morning, Sandra. This is Siobhan here, and I just wanted to tune in. I'm listening to Wendy as she speaks, and I mean, I guess the outrage of this whole thing is so much boiling my blood. And
well, we want you to keep the comments brief. Get to the point.
I'm going to keep it brief.
Yeah.
The problem that I have here, Sandra, with this whole entire case, that the country on a whole should be outraged about. Like Wendy said, there was such poor police reporting from the beginning. There was never any intent to even try to get a balance. They had automatically assumed and behaved as though, at least in my opinion, that Mr. Bush was already guilty. But the concern that the public at large needs to have is that when the threshold for charging somebody with any offense, let alone a serious offense that would have warranted serious jail time, I think the sentence in laws are somewhere there about 10 to 25 years for rape, that when the threshold for doing that is this low, given the fact and the circumstances of the poorly conducted police investigation in this case, nobody in this country is safe. No one in this country is safe. And this lies at the head of the Director of Public Prosecutions. And to know that these are the types of cases that are making their way through the courts, no one is safe. And that's what this country should be upset and outraged about. It was Mr. Bush today, but it could be somebody else tomorrow. And the threshold, like I said, for charging somebody with such a serious offense is this low. Nobody is safe. I'll leave you there.
Okay, thank you very much.
Siobhan has a point, because it's, for whatever reason, I mean, the thing is, it feeds into Mr. Bush's sort of conspiracy theories, if you like, that they're out to get him. And you can understand why he might feel that way. Now, historically, you can argue till you're blue in the face about what happened with his previous conviction and his assault there, and that wasn't persecution. But, obviously he will still say that. Having said that, when you saw the previous case that collapsed halfway through, and this is another thing actually that we need to double check. I believe that there's still a ruling in relation to that previous case that was kept under wraps because of the prejudice in the next case. So we couldn't talk about it. And there's, we've been gagged. I have to remember what we've been gagged about now, because these gags need lifting, and we will have to make an application as the press to get these gags lifted on these rulings and what have you, because what happened in the previous case, there was also some concern about how that was prosecuted, not that whether he did or didn't touch those women. That's neither here nor there. Again, I'm not interested in getting into women blaming at all, because I think, what happened there was that both those women made decisions about what had happened to them. And there was something there, but the way that the Crown brought it was wrong, because, from the get-go, one of the victims had said, I'm not interested in doing this. I didn't see it as a crime. It wasn't pleasant. It was creepy and weird, but it wasn't a crime. And that's the point. It's like, people like Mr. McKeeva in his life and the way it is, I don't think he's thinking when he's approaching a woman that he knows really well and he's worked with for years, that, and he sucks on her hand. I don't think he's thinking, oh, I'm committing a crime. He's just being him, and there is an element of you can't be prosecuted. It's not appropriate, but you don't be putting people in jail to do that. You have to be.
Yeah, but let's also be very clear. Whether you consider something a crime or not doesn't necessarily mean it isn't a crime.
Yeah, exactly, and vice versa. There's an issue, but I think what we must concentrate on, and what I think is important, and why I agreed to come on the show here today, it's not. This isn't just about what happened to Mr. McKeeva. This is about currently the director at the moment. Now, I have never, since he here arrived, we have never seen him, and we've commented on this, all of us, quite a lot in the press. None of us have seen him litigate. He has not brought a case. He is allowing, now he has a competent team of prosecutors that he depends on.
Let's get to him in a second. I want to put a couple, because
I think it's important, and whether
I've already said that he needs to go. Like,
I mean, it's absurd. He hasn't successfully. I mean, the decline in successful prosecutions since he came on board. No, don't get me wrong. His predecessor wasn't great, but this guy's terrible. I mean,
so let's talk about Carla's point here. She says, if you were not assaulted many years ago, you have no idea what she should be remembering today. Our brains protect us by removing some memories, good or bad, I speak from experience.
Yeah, she's right. So, that's perfectly true too. Yes.
Yeah. So, but let's talk about this concept a little bit, because I think the prosecution at one point stood up and objected to, we can't say what she should and shouldn't have done.
100%. Right? Absolutely. No. And if
victims, when they're in a situation, every situation is unique. Every victim is unique. So some victims automatically just cave in in their mind to stay alive 100%. And keep themselves safe. They'll do whatever. If somebody says, get down and lick my boots, whatever, they're going to do it.
Yeah, you can some people will react like that for sure.
Yeah, and they're going to fight.
And they won't be the first. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, you can't say to the victim, why didn't you fight? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you? What I thought was peculiar and interesting about this particular victim is when it seems like she was getting questions for details about what happened, two things occurred. She either couldn't remember, but she could remember all sorts of other like peripheral things, or she started getting very, very emotional. That was her response, right?
And her response was, I don't think there's anything wrong. I'm not criticizing her, and I don't want to criticize. I haven't come on here to do that. She told her story, and that story has some truth to it. I don't know what it is. I don't know. It's a long time ago. She has told slightly different versions to different people at different times. But the way I was struck very much by, I felt that whatever had happened to her when she was much younger than she was describing in the court. Yeah. I felt that she was describing the actions of a very young woman or even a child. And I feel
why did you think that? Because I've commented on what I thought.
It's really difficult, but it's just the way that she described it, right? And the way she constantly spoke about herself as being this vulnerable, young, small, tiny person all the time. It was just very evocative of her being very. And yet, at the time, she was. If it is 2000, then she was like pushing 30 and had at least 2 children and she was holding down a good job. So she was, and I'm not saying that you still can't be, but you wouldn't describe yourself in the way that she was. Right. She was describing herself as a child or a young teen.
And remember, I said this to you. Remember in court, I actually said this to you before she admitted to being sexually molested as a child. I said to you, this is childhood trauma. That's what this is.
Yes, I feel so. It's the first time she's probably spoken about it. Now, I don't know what happens. I understand. I don't want to degrade in any way. But sometimes some of the pastoral spiritual counselors in churches, they're not psychiatrists. They're not qualified counselors. They approach their work through a more spiritual, religious position, not a scientific one. And I wonder, what kind of false memories, what kind of mix up she's gone through with this type of sort of I would say sort of dangerous counseling sometimes, as it can be so sort of evocative of, this guy was talking when he was giving evidence about demonic episodes and stuff, and it's things like that concern me about what type of counseling did she have that has perhaps distorted her own memories. Our memory plays tricks on us all the time, and yes, you can often conflate issues. And there may have been a time when Mr. Bush did, unknowingly or accidentally or something, have some kind of an encounter with it. And then when all of his cases came up recently, it kind of triggered something for her that she felt that he must have been the one that did it. But I don't know. I can't explain. But at the end of the day, it's about evidence and proof. And I did not feel that case, that the investigation into that case was really that thorough, or there were several things that they could have done that might. And let's start with the car. Now I know that car. She said it was a Ford Expedition. There was a lot of talk about the Ford Expedition because it was so big, and she was allegedly so little. So the issue of the car, and the Crown presented it as Mr. Bush's car. They didn't say, oh, he was driving a work car, or he was driving somebody else's car, or there was some suggestion it was someone else's car. It was all along, they had presented the case as a fact of evidence that it was his car. But yet they brought nothing from DVDL to say that a Ford Expedition was registered in either Mr. Bush's name or his wife's name or any of his family members. You understand what I mean? So that was something that they could have done. They could have come along and said, oh yeah, he did at one point, his wife was driving, or his son was driving. But no, there was nothing like that. Secondly, they approached several members of the PPM that were said to have been at the bar that night, and not one of them would come to court to say that McKeeva was there. Not one. And in what appears to be evidence that was not put in, but it was induced in the stand, Mr. McLaughlin had said to the police he had no specific memory of that specific night, and how very unlikely it would have been any time that he would have been drinking in the CN bar with McKeeva Bush during that particular time period. Because even when Kurt Tibbetts was sitting in the council with McKeeva before the 2000 election, post the 2000 election, they weren't, Alder McLaughlin and McKeeva Bush were not pally. They were not particularly, chummy. You just can't imagine. I mean, I can't imagine it. Can you imagine Alden and Mac having a beer together in the sea? I just can't see it.
I mean, I think the defense was making a point about how, and as a member of the progressives and stuff, right? Because even she was kind of saying like, oh, it was when Alden first got involved in politics.
Exactly. It was again very unspecific.
Yeah, so the year that that Alden would have first gotten involved in politics, I was actually part of the PPM back then, because I remember Mr. Kurt Tibbetts taking him around to different neighborhoods and saying, hey, this is where you've got to, like, you got to sit here, you got to do. But that wasn't until like 2003.
After he got elected?
No, I mean,
he got elected in 2000. McLaughlin got elected in 2000. So he was already sitting in Parliament when I got here. And then they because remember the 2004 election was cancelled
around 2003, after the whole coup happened and all that kind of stuff. But
after the coup. But prior to the coup, it wasn't as if Alder McLaughlin and McKeeva Bush were particularly friendly, even before the coup. They weren't. Whilst Kurt and him had obviously worked in Expo together, it wasn't.
I think the defense's point that there are kind of grounds that progressive members would hang out because that's their support base, right? So CN bar,
as he said, it was Kurt Tibbetts' stomping ground. He would, and McKeeva said, "I wouldn't have gone there. Like it's Georgetown Central. It's not his hood. You know what I mean? He just wouldn't have had a great reception. It was always Kurt's territory, and so you'll have that situation where I don't know. I'm not saying the issue is I don't know, and at the end of the day, what you're trying to convince the jury of is to be sure. And there's absolutely no way that any of them, given that case as it was presented, regardless of whether the defense would have even bothered to do anything, there was not enough evidence to convict him, because it was not. How could it was so vague? I'd said earlier on in the week, and what Mr. Lynch said in his closing speech, you've got to give the fella a chance to defend himself. When you make such a huge accusation, it's a terrible accusation to make. It's an awful accusation. And it is, he was looking, if he'd have been found guilty, he was looking at 12 years. Thereabouts.
Yeah, for sure. And as a juror, I mean, I can see that Carla is obviously in the comment section being very triggered by this, because she feels like we are tearing the victim apart.
Not at all. Absolutely not at all. And I refuse to do that. It was traumatizing to watch it. I mean, especially the video. She has suffered terribly somehow, somewhere. But I cannot be sure that the way she told the story, that was an accurate account. And if it's not, if I'm not sure that was an accurate account, I'm not saying she was lying. I am saying she could have misremembered. She could have conflated things. It is a long time ago, and it's a lot more than 20 years. They keep talking about 20 years, but it's not a lot more than 20. It's now 2024. She's talking about it could have been as far back. It could be 25 years. It's a long time.
Yeah.
And I was trying to think myself, like 25 years ago, pick a random kind of event and see what you can remember. And you remember bits and pieces of things, but you don't remember what's around the outside, because like you might remember specific things that are either unpleasant or very pleasant, but the build up to and the post, maybe not. Because if you made a decision at the time, as she probably did, not to report it, I'm not saying that it's not possible that every word she said was true.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's not it.
Victims,
but you can't be sure. And that's what it requires to convict someone. That's the point.
Yeah.
It's not, And I think this was so far from ever being a case that you could be sure about.
Yeah.
I don't think they should have brought it.
They should have ever brought it. Yeah. And you know, the weird thing is the things that you can remember, again, you know, everybody's memory is different, but the thing that Carla needs to understand is a person's credibility when you have a case like this means everything, right? So
being accused of rape is awful.
Yeah, and anybody being accused of a crime is awful, but when you, as a defense and even the jury sitting there, you have to think, do I believe what this person is saying? I mean, their credibility is on yes, their credibility is on trial. They're making the accusations. And there were a number of times, was there anything that stood out in your mind, Wendy? Because there's a number of times when the defense called into question her credibility. Was there any, I mean, there was the one about meeting with Mr. Roy McTaggart, which remember she initially denied, and then she kind of backtracked and said, well,
I mean, I think there was a lot of that whole, like, oh, let's find little holes in her life. And I mean, you know, none of us are perfect. We all write bullshit on social media and all that kind of stuff. I wasn't really taken, but that to me was all, that was just red herrings being thrown around. It was just the usual, oh, let's discredit the woman. I found that unpleasant, and it wasn't, I didn't feel it was necessary. He had a very clear road of defense for Mr. Bush, which was quite simply, you are not giving the man a chance to pin down, to offer an alibi. This is, you have to be sure. This is a very vague allegation. He has denied it categorically, and let's face it, he's denied it from the minute. He never actually went down the road of, which I did find strange, actually. It's funny you should say, what did I find strange? McKeeva Bush had never gone down the road of saying this was an incident in which sex was consenting. Even though, and yet they kind of tried to imply that, and I found that strange. He spent quite a bit of time in his closing address, which we didn't really sort of report on massively in the end, because the situation was such that the verdict came down not long after he finished his speech. So I didn't go into all the details, but he had at least sort of 15 minutes in his closing speech where he focused on the fact that whoever raped her, how would they know that she'd given consent? Because it wasn't clear how often she said no and don't and all the freezing and all that.
Can't even remember.
So he went down that road, and I felt that that's unnecessary because, again, this is why I feel that what she's talking about is something that occurred to her when she was much younger, because I think that's the kind of reaction a younger teenage woman might make in those circumstances, like just freezing in fear and just doing what she's told. Like, you know, a creature of instruction, almost like, you know, young girls who are like used to, like, you know, I know it's very strict.
Like someone who had been grooming her, had access to her.
Yeah, and she would have maybe just done what she was told. And that's probably why she hates herself, because she didn't fight. She didn't say no too often, or she didn't say stop, or she didn't push him away. You know, because of fear and all the rest of it. So those are genuine situations in which women find themselves when they're raped or sexually abused. And I think all of that, I wouldn't have gone there. He didn't need to, I don't feel. I feel that it was already basically what you're saying, that my client sometime during a 6-year period, more than 25 years ago, might have raped this woman. It's too vague. It is a serious crime.
Yeah. And what did you
and
make?
You have nothing else. You have nothing. No real contemporaneous evidence, because that would have been what could have really sealed it for her.
And speaking of contemporaneous evidence, Wendy, this whole question of, did you tell anyone?
Yes, that's exactly it. And
you know,
if you tell someone at the time and then report it years later, that telling someone at the time is really good, solid evidence. Yeah.
And here's the other thing. Not only did she not have it, but the one person she says, well, this one person knows everything, I definitely told her, is dead and can't be called as a witness. Yeah. So that was very.
And the next person that she told closer to the time was an aunt and she doesn't get along. They don't speak. So
and the aunt doesn't
wouldn't come to court. And then other people that she told, what made that bad was she contacted every one of them just before she reported it to the police to say, do you remember when I told you about? And they all had, if any memory at all, quite vague memories. And
there were times when they said it didn't align with what she was then typing them and saying to them. Like, oh, don't you remember when I told you that this?
When I told you this, this, and this?
You didn't say it was a politician.
Yeah, you just said it was a big man. You didn't say it was a politician. So things like that. The only person that seemed to was able to say the name of the politician and the details, was this counsellor. And as I say, I am instinctively, I'm just distrustful of people that are not basing this kind of stuff on science. When you're basing it on your faith and your beliefs, that's all well and good, and that's great. And if it gives people comfort and all the rest of it, but that's not science. So let's not get bogged down in what type of counselling he was giving and what he was, and some of the things he said straight away to me was like, oh, this is laying on, this is like red flags, yeah. So, and you don't know what kind of things he put into her mind. I'm not suggesting that he did, but he might have done. You know what I mean? I'm not, and it's like that. Can you really, if that's all you've got, nothing else, and you're making this kind of, and yes, it's her word, and her word, as I say, was convincing to me that she was raped. I just
something happened to her without a doubt,
with any certainty, how and what and under what circumstances she was. But it didn't. The story she told didn't, to me, fit with her emotional response to the story, like how she described herself did not fit with the physicality of what she was describing, i.e. I go to a bar, pick up my drunk mother, and also those were like kind of odd. It seemed very odd if she'd gone to the bar to pick up her mother and then she was told that she must drive McKeeva Bush home, and there was some implication from the defense that was almost cooked up, from the Crown, that was almost cooked up so that McKeeva could have he could flirt with her or whatever on the way home, and they all thought it was funny. That was some kind of implication, but that came out, that wasn't said in her AB interview. That kind of came out in cross-examination in the post, the redirect in the.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. So let me just ask, let's go to a couple of questions here, because I can see that people are a little bit confused. So let's help them with the confusion. So Ms. Sue says this woman will now have to pay Mac's lawyers because he won. Crazy how she's going to pay all that money. Okay, well, Ms. Sue, that's actually not factually correct. Wendy, for some reason, you've frozen for me. Hopefully other people can still see you. Hold on one second. Let me maybe just refresh. Let me see what's going on here. She's completely frozen. So Ms. Sue, oops. Okay. Can you guys see Wendy? Yeah, she's frozen. Okay, so it wasn't just me. So it's her internet. But Ms. Sue, she'll pop back on. Ms. Sue, that's not how this works. This is a criminal prosecution. In criminal cases, right, the person making the allegation doesn't pay the cost for the other side. So you're a little bit confused about how the justice system works. She's not going to have to pay McKeeva's lawyers. This is not a civil case. In a civil case, costs are attached, right, to if the party who brings the lawsuit loses, then they pay. This is a criminal case. In a criminal case, the DPP's office, the prosecution, brings the case, and that is why we say here today that the prosecution has to take responsibility for this entire mess. And if anybody should be held to account in terms of this went south and it's your fault, it has to be the head of the DPP's office. It's not the victim, right? As Wendy said, she brought a story. But the powers that be have to look at what is before them and make a determination. Let me see if I can message Wendy here. They have to make a determination about whether or not this is a case that has a remote chance of winning, and they never had a chance of winning this case. This is what I'm telling you. The evidence and everything was just that poor. All right, let's continue reading some comments. We'll see if Wendy can pop back on. Johan says, pay attention, Caymanians. If the system and players are not held accountable, that means that the system does not work. Where is the accountability? Hashtag third world governance, hashtag no bueno. Ms. Carla says, I absolutely agree that this is not based on what we, the public, especially the jurors, believe, but the facts presented. But the facts presented, Carla, leads them to believe he's guilty or not guilty. So they have to make a determination based on what they see before them. And what I'm saying to everybody, if you're listening, as jurors, all of this stuff matters. The credibility of witnesses matter. They're not lawyers. A jury is not a lawyer. So if they find that, wow, if this person can lie about not having certain credentials and whatever, maybe they lie about other stuff in life. So their credibility, when you're sitting there with a juror, a group of people, all of that matters. Wendy, you're back?
Yeah, I'm going to need, can you hear me? Because I'm going to need to change headsets. But if you can hear me,
we can hear you. So unless you need to hear yourself, I guess.
I've swapped to
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah.
I've swapped to the phone though.
Okay. All right. Just going through some of the comments, Marva. So Carla was saying, it doesn't matter what people believe, it's based on the facts. But I was saying to her, the jury has to come to conclusion about the facts, which is their belief of innocence or guilt.
Yeah. And that's as far as I'm concerned, that's the most important thing about this situation. And that's why I agreed to come on, because I think this has much wider implications. To bring a case like that and such a high profile and I mean, it's, obviously it feeds into his conspiracy theories. I don't know who this case helped. I mean, I don't think it helped the victim, because she hasn't got justice and she was never going to get justice. And all she got was berated on the stand. She went, Lynch gave her a hard time, and rightly so, because his client's kind of liberty was on the line. And, it's not, he has said he didn't do it. She said he did, and that's it. And we don't have, it's very difficult. Unfortunately, you've got to err on the side of caution in these circumstances. And I just don't feel that the DPP necessarily erred on the side of caution. And I mean, Mr. McKeeva is now calling for a commission of inquiry and all of those things. And I don't disagree.
I was going to say this morning that I don't think he's the one to do that. I don't think he is. I think it should be
automatically the Premier should do it.
Exactly.
But
and to be honest, this is where McKeeva is his own worst enemy.
He's calling for Eloise Marshall, who was the prosecutor in this case, and I think he's wrong there. All she did was her job. She's a competent and good lawyer.
This happens in court every day if he paid attention.
Yeah.
To the plight of the rest of us.
Cases that and she is a creature of instruction. She did what she could to help the victim. She did a great job in supporting the victim, and I think it's wrong for Mr. Bush to point the finger at her. The finger needs to be pointed firmly at Simon Davies, who is the head of the Director of Public Prosecutions, who, as I've said, has not once stood. The only time we've heard him speak in court is at the opening of the Grand Court during the pomp and everything. And you can barely hear him. He's clearly not a litigator.
Yeah.
So,
I don't even know how he got this job, to be honest.
I don't know. We have somebody at the head of our prosecution's office that doesn't know how to prosecute. And so what does he, is he a good manager? Well, it seems not.
Well,
I mean,
ask his staff, and I can tell you that they're not going to agree with that.
Well, hardly a ringing endorsement from any of them,
Yes, yeah. So, I mean, look at the number of people that have left since he's been there, since 2022 in the past 2 years. And not only that, but I understand that he has written, even in the previous McKeeva case, and other cases, he's the one who's actually writing stuff, instructing the lawyers what to say in court. And then when they get hauled in by the judges saying, what is this foolishness? This is madness. And they're like, well, it's Simon that wrote it. He doesn't even show up. He shows up not in his proper robe and whatever.
There's been times when he's been instructed by judges to tell him. And this is not just the McKeeva case. There was also a disaster. That was another disastrous case that I have no idea how they could lose it so badly. Which was the way that they prosecuted the Russian, Israeli, Canadian.
Right. That gun case.
That got 87,000 guns in his bag. Yeah. I mean, that was ridiculous, because there's no way that should be allowed in law. What happened, but because of a poor. A combination of a poorly drafted legislation and a poorly presented case.
Yeah. But, the DPP's office has to know when to throw in the towel and say, we can't win this case. And it seems to me that he does not have that skill set. We got a lawyer on the phone. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Sandy and Wendy. I will be very brief because I'm really interested in the way you are analyzing this. But I don't want to address the evidentiary issues and so on. And I agree with a lot of what you said. But I want to address the issue of the commission of inquiry that Mr. Bush has called for. I want to support that, but I think it should be a broader inquiry. I think There
Yes.
is need for an inquiry in his particular cases, in his particular cases, but also I think generally speaking, the DPP's office and just the general legal services in government need to be investigated. Without going into detail, I always talk about that paralegal who was prosecuted in the portfolio of legal affairs. I think a Crown Counsel should also probably have been prosecuted.
I think you're right that it should be general, and McKeeva isn't calling for it to be about him. He is saying it's a general inquiry. He wants a general commission inquiry into how the office is being fair to him.
Okay, well, it's good that you clarify that, and I want to support that fully. By the way, in the BVI, they had an inquiry into the judicial and legal services, which has just submitted its report. There was, the bigger inquiry for the whole government. They did that, but after that, they did another one, like a sub-inquiry, but a full-blown inquiry into the judicial and legal services, and they've just submitted their report. Before I let you go, last point. In the judicial review that I have brought against the Chief Justice and the Judicial and Legal Services Commission, the governor has informed me officially through the Office of the Chief Justice that she has appointed a special ad hoc judge to come from another jurisdiction to hear that judicial review. And that is because I asked specifically the Chief Justice and the governor to do that, because I felt that in the case in which I believe I'd proved the judge lying by documentary evidence, 13 emails are proved, and yet I took the whole case to the Privy Council and I still lost. So I think there's a need for a much broader inquiry, and I think it will do very well if you guys agree to promote this, because I intend to promote it.
Okay.
That's what I want to say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All righty.
Bye.
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of issues about this particular director of public prosecution since his appointment in July of 2022. This, like I said earlier in the program, this is just the straw that maybe helped to finish. The camel's back, in my opinion, was already broken.
Yeah.
This guy's got to go. I mean, he's
I
know him, but he's actually horrible. He doesn't.
Over the years, I've seen.
Go back to the point that you were making about how he's been summoned by judges to show up, and then what he does,
and like reluctantly, he's telling young prosecutors in particular. I mean, he's to a certain extent, he's humiliating these young prosecutors by making them do things that they know they can't do, because they're the ones litigating it. They're the ones that are standing up in the court in front of the judge saying the stuff. Oh, well, I mean, again, they're creatures of instruction, and they have to do what. And in the case of the Crown, when the Crown is prosecuting a case, the prosecutors are the creatures of instruction. It's the actual DPP himself and the police that bring the case. They are like, if you like, the solicitor, as would be the equivalent in England. It's not. The prosecutors simply present the case that is brought by the office. And, if you yourself as the manager are not prepared to get up on the stand and do this, and at the bar and do it, bearing in mind that before Justice Richards became a judge, she had the position from the beginning when it was first carved out from the Attorney General's chambers and created as an independent criminal prosecution service. And Michelle did every single one of the difficult cases, and she would bring juniors along with her, like her team, so they would be the second, they would be able to learn with her. So as their boss, she was teaching them on a daily, weekly basis, as in case after case after case, and presenting them. And she was a competent, thorough, usually emotionless. There were a couple of cases, a couple of murder cases where I saw her really get upset, but generally she was a very competent prosecutor and set a really good example. But since she left, it's just gone downhill.
All right, good morning,
this guy's
caller.
the worst of them all. The worst by far.
Morning.
Nothing redeeming.
Yeah, morning, caller.
Hi, good morning, Sandy. I was going to ask this question in the comment area there, but I didn't want it to get lost. You're making a great point, and I think we've seen this, we've heard this, and you say this all the time. So here's my question. I need you all to educate us, the listening audience. If the head of the DPP's office is summoned to court by judges, and he no-shows, what and how is he reprimanded? And don't they have that authority to reprimand him for... Because look here, if I'm summoned to court as a juror and I know sure I am reprimanded. And so my thing is that who is accountable to hold him responsible? If the judges can't do it, then who? Because it seems as if he's untouchable. Yeah, so educate us, because I'm totally lost right now, because it seems to me that only Jesus Christ.
I can answer in terms of the cases where I saw it happen. It wasn't so much that he was summoned officially. The judges requested his presence because they wanted to find out. And on 2 occasions, he was rather reluctant to come. It's not that he didn't come. He did come eventually. It's just that it wasn't like, oh, yes, he's going to jump. You know, the judge says come and he jumps. It was a bit, it was a bit more. It took a while to get him there. They got him there, but there was no summons involved or anything like that. I don't want anybody to think that he's been breaching the
in one instance, didn't he show up but then wasn't prepared to speak?
Exactly, because he said he didn't have the information he needed and he needed to prepare if he was going to do it. So it's things like that. So it's not, nobody, I'm not suggesting that. I don't want this to get distorted. When I say he was called to court, so I mean, the judge goes, I think we should speak to the director and could we arrange for him to
and I've never seen that happen so many times to any one director. That's the other thing. That's
so
never.
It's
so let's
in and of itself it was particularly unusual.
So someone has some comments here saying that they think maybe she had mental health issues. I'll let you guys read that for yourself. Then they go on to say, I was sexually assaulted 27 years ago at a preschool, and I remember every single detail of my assault. I've never disclosed this to anyone. They say she's a pathological liar. Every time she comes to court on a warrant, she lied and said the Chief Justice threw it out. I said he did not, and he told you to return on so-and-so date. And because she didn't get a warrant, she didn't come, a warrant was issued. She has serious mental health issues. She needs to move back where she was before. I agree with you. She was assaulted, but I think when she was younger. So this person seems to have some experiences there. This person says the director does not go to court at all. He advocated on one case only since he's been here. The police have pushed both cases as well. In each one, the UK officers have had a big hand in the investigation. I get Wendy's point about consent, but Jerome Lynch KC had to cover every eventuality in the case, especially when the allegations are so vague. The job of prosecuting counsel is to represent the state, not the victim. He prosecutes on behalf of the state. This person says, as a concerned citizen, I'm compelled to express my deep unease regarding the recent case involving McKeeva Bush. The not guilty verdict in this area, based on revelations that the victim was not truthful, highlights a crucial issue, that needs urgent attention, the importance of robust and sufficient evidence in legal proceedings. The decision of the DPP to bring charges without adequately substantiated evidence is not just a procedural misstep, it's a dangerous precedent that could have far-reaching consequences. It risks undermining public trust in the judicial system, discourages genuine victims from coming forward, and wastes valuable resources that could be better used elsewhere. False allegations and poorly supported prosecutions do more than tarnish reputations. They compromise the integrity of our legal system, when cases are brought to court without a solid foundation of evidence, it diminishes the credibility of the DPP and can lead to public skepticism about the justice system's ability to fairly and accurately adjudicate serious matters. I urge the DPP to exercise the utmost caution and due diligence when bringing charges, especially in sensitive and high-profile cases. The justice system must be rigorous and impartial, ensuring that all charges are backed by substantial and compelling evidence. Only through meticulous and careful prosecution can we maintain the balance of justice and protect the rights of all individuals involved. We must strive for a justice system that is both fair and effective, and this requires a commitment to evidence-based prosecutions and a steadfast adherence to the principles of justice. Let this case be a reminder of the critical need for prudence and integrity in our legal processes. Sounds like a lawyer, but very well written.
Yeah, very important. And the impartiality is.
But I mean, it happens. People might be surprised.
Others.
Yeah, I was going to say, people might be surprised to know how often it happens. Like when I tell people, with the exception of the one case, which I'm trying to appeal, that every single one of my cases was thrown out at the no case to answer stage. And it's been like 5-6 cases. That should make people pause.
And it has to be, it cannot be ignored that this has begun to happen to you. I mean, it's always very easy to imply that, oh, you know, she was up to no good somehow, or McKeeva's up to no good somehow. Well, we all could be up to a little bit of no good everywhere. It's just life.
Yeah.
But like the persecution, you know, I've said this to you. I mean, you and I might be rivals on the news front or whatever, but like the way that you've been treated by the DPP, I know they're pissed at you because of the things that you do, but it doesn't matter. It's like you're part of a free press and you're part of a democracy. What you did, how you run your business is up to you. Now, if you do things that get you into trouble and you get sued by people then that's your issue that you got to deal with. It's the same as us. We got to deal with it when it happens to us. But for the prosecutor to be coming and bringing cases against you for doing a job is like, you might not like how she does her job, but you know, it's not a crime to go after somebody in a news environment if that person is, you know, sometimes because we are the area where you can hold people accountable without a criminal standard sometimes. Because there aren't consequences. There's just like, okay, everybody knows now that you did something bad. Yeah. It might not be enough to get to the court. So, and you're exposing these things. And so, you know, it's not my cup of tea. I enjoy exposing what they're doing to the environment. That's where I'm going. But again, it's the same kind of thing. I'm showing you that these people are doing bad things to the environment. There's nothing we can do about that in the court. They haven't reached the threshold of breaching the very weak Conservation Act that they all want to think some kind of draconian.
But it's so interesting when I have had in my personal case, like police officers say to me, well, you know, what is the role of a journalist? I went to Google and I Googled it. And I'm just like, what? Yeah.
And also this is the thing, you don't understand the modern environment. We have, because we have British common law in terms of influencing the sub judice laws, it's a lot stricter here than it is in the United States. In the United States, you can say what the F you like. There's nothing, because they have an absolute free speech. We have a qualified free speech to a certain extent, which is that you cannot be irresponsible. You can't shout fire in cinema any more than you can, you know, malign somebody. So we have to be a bit more careful, especially when it comes to criminal things like that and saying stuff about people in court. We cannot report in the same way that American people can. We just can't. And that is if that's to protect a victim, because I always feel either a victim or a wrongly accused person, then fair enough. I'm not going to lose sleep on it. I'm smart enough to work my way around the system and write things in a way that's, you know, might be close to the wind, but it stays on the right side of the law. That's part and parcel of our job. We learn to do that. End of. It doesn't matter. But to persecute somebody in a different way, which to me it seems like, as I say, I might not agree with everything you do, but it doesn't mean to say that I think you should go to jail for it. And on too many occasions, it has looked like, ever since you did that case with the dog where you won, and I just think they just got so mad at you.
They got a hard on for me.
Yeah, that it literally, and it starts to look like that. And I feel that to a certain extent, that is what's happened with McKeeva. He has throughout his life had some colourful situations swirling around him, and we all know it. And they haven't been able to pin him down. Not dissimilar to our friends over in whose stars are aligning over in the United States. You know, there's the similarities between the two. And let's face it, McKeeva did it before Trump, so you know, he's the original. He's the original Trump. But it's like you're going to feed into everything that he claims. That since he became a leader, the British have been after him, and he really believes that. And every single time you do these things, you just feed that monster to the point where now it's like, well, how can anybody deny the fact that they seem to have persecuted the fella? I can't. It's reached the point. But I've been reporting on McKeeva's alleged wrongdoing since the day I got here. But it starts. You can't pin him down on something if you can't prosecute him for what he did. You can't start looking for stuff that he might have done. It doesn't work like that. You have to prosecute him. If you think the man's a criminal, then you have to prosecute him for a crime he did and prove it.
Yeah.
It's the same with Donald Trump. You know, it's like, yeah, they have prosecuted him. They got him on something. They got him on something he did. They have to do it. If you're going, it's like, what do they say? If you're going to shoot at the king, you better not miss.
Yeah. Well,
I think with McKeeva, we've seen them miss a gazillion times. I mean, all the way back to the original case that they brought against him for the gambling rubbish.
Right. For the credit card, misuse of credit card.
And said there's no law against it. Andy wrote checks. Well, it was like, why are we all here? you know, I mean, these are basic. This is basic 101 in your case. Like if there's a clear and evident, oh, he can't have done it. Why are you bringing these cases? It just makes you look terrible, and it just feeds his monster of like, look at me, poor me.
Yep. And, you know, I mean, it's so interesting. One of the reasons why I said that he shouldn't, if I were him, and if his advisors, if he listens to advisors, they need to tell him just to go sit in the corner with the little cane that you never really needed, and just relax
with it. But
just relax yourself, because now he's going to use this as a platform to be like, oh, well, you know, I said before I wasn't going to run for office. I told you all that was a lie. So nobody should be surprised. Now he's going to jump up and run for office. He's on a high, cloud nine. He feels vindicated, but he feels vindicated with everything he's ever done his entire life.
I don't think he's on cloud nine. I don't think he feels vindicated. I think he's angry and hurt. I was struck by his reaction, you know, especially when people talk about his family and how much of a hurt it has been, because it is difficult. And I think when you're a politician, you drag your family along. It's like he said, you know, his wife has just put up with it. She's not at all in being on a platform or being, you know, she doesn't do the first lady bit at all. She's always been very quiet and at home. And I think she suffered, and he knows that. And I think he feels that really deeply. And, you know, I'm not carrying no water for me. You know that, McKeeva, but but he is still going to use it as a reason to but he did say to me yesterday when I asked him the question, are you going to run for office again? He says his family really doesn't want him to do it, but he's not ruling it.
And he shouldn't.
I think that by not.
Yeah, he shouldn't do it. I mean, he's already said that he's not. And I think you be a man of your word and don't run. You said you weren't going to run. So, you know.
He said the same thing and she'll run.
Who? Juliana. Well, I mean,
it's almost like they're tempting somebody to like come up, because this is a thing. Who's running against them? You know, this is the thing. Until they find out, because that's the thing with McKeeva. He won't be able to resist fighting whoever it is that stands and says, "Okay, I'm going to run for McKeeva's seat if he's retiring." He'll be like, "Oh no, I'm running against him." You know, he'll do it. I mean, okay, I could be wrong, but my gut tells me he's going to run.
Yeah, well, my gut told me that from the second he said he wasn't going to run. So.
He didn't rule it out when I asked him. So.
Yeah, I mean, my guts told me that when he said he wasn't going to run. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I certainly didn't believe it for not once.
But you're absolute. What you're right about, Sandra, for sure, is that this commission of inquiry, it needs to take place, but it would be better if it wasn't McKeeva bringing this motion. That in fact it was just something that the premier or even the governor has the guts to just say, you know what, we're going to do this because there are too many things. It isn't just about McKeeva. There are too many other issues that this particular DPP, bearing in mind that it, you know, things weren't great when he arrived. With the previous DPP wasn't great with the staff. There was a lot of allegations against him about bullying and even racism, although he claims that they were never proved and blah blah blah. I don't know. I can't say because we've never been allowed to see the report. But at the end of the day, there was something going on there with him and his team. They didn't like him, and that sometimes it might not be your fault. But it means it's not working, so you need to go.
Yeah.
And this guy,
and the same thing. I mean, I was thinking of the young lady who prosecuted. The young prosecutor there from Trinidad, I think she's already left. I mean, they've lost so many staff members since he's been there. That's really been shocking. I think they've lost more, especially Caribbean and local crown councils in the past 2 years, and even under the previous guy. What was his name again? Patrick, which nobody liked Patrick. But, you know, they kind of hung around a little bit. But this guy, oh my God, it's horrific in terms of the hemorrhaging of staff.
I think there's a couple of senior, very competent prosecutors that are still there that are good. And I think they might be hanging around waiting on the opportunity.
Let's see when he'll be able to leave.
Get fired. There's at least 4 of them that could, I think, local people that have been here plenty, not prosecute people that they're not Kimanis, but they're people that have been here a long time. Right. And I think there's at least 4 of them that could take that job. And they're all good litigators.
Yeah. I don't know if that will ever happen, Wendy. I don't want to be insulting to you, but we have a certain taste in our mouth or desire in our mouth as a colony to always want to bring in the Englishman to do the job that, you know, their local other Caribbean people who could do it perfectly well.
Like I said, there's 4 of them that, you know, some are from the Caribbean, some are from England, that like it's a mixed bag of people. But I'm telling you that they have plenty of people in that office that they could pick from that could run it. and are already proven.
Right. And hopefully are a bit more likable. Yeah. I mean, I don't know who you have in mind, but hopefully they're a little bit more likable. Well, Wendy,
they're all good.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on the program. Jonathan says there's a difference between professional incompetence and purposeful sabotage used as an underhanded tactic of political subterfuge, and it's more probable than not that this latest case is indicative of the latter. Well,
yeah, it makes you wonder, right? So that's why they need information to find out, is it just pure incompetence, or is there something more sinister at play?
Right. I mean, I don't know. I mean, even in my situation, I mean, it becomes a question, and you have to ask yourself, is it possible that they're that incompetent? I mean, that's really the question.
It's possible. I believe me, it's possible. Right. I think incompetence accounts for an awful lot of mistakes that are made in public office, because what happens is you don't want to admit that you're incompetent, so you try and cover it up.
And there's little to no accountability from the people who should be testing the competence of department heads, chief officers, deputy chief officers, and all the way down the line, right down to the receptionist. Dean says in this case, a lie detector test would have been useful for the DPP, at least all the same, but you can't give a victim a lie detector test.
And lie detector tests are rubbish. I mean, they're discredited left, right, center. They're rubbish. You can't help.
And they can't be used in a court of law.
Heart races, or they get a little palpitation, or they get a bit sweaty. You know, you might get sweaty because you're just uncomfortable with the busies. I would be if I was being questioned by the busies. I'm the one that usually asks questions, and I don't like people asking them me. So, you know, I would be uncomfortable, but that's rubbish. And also some people, especially sociopaths, who are the criminals, they're really good at
fooling a lie detector test,
because they're so good at being able to just stay calm.
Yeah, because they believe their own lies.
Yeah, and they believe their own lies, and they're completely emotionless. So they're lacking empathy or sympathy. So you have that situation where, you know, most sociopaths can sail through lie detector tests with.
There's a reason why they're not admissible in most jurisdictions. Lie detector tests.
Yeah, in America, where they use sort of like stupid gimmicks and lock people up for it. I mean, you know, how many times have cases been overthrown where a lie detector test has been used? I mean, I know they can't use them in court or anything now, but they use them to begin. Like, that's it. It's like if you fail a lie detector test, you become the prime suspect, and they don't look anywhere else, which is a huge problem.
What a hot mess. I tell you what. I don't know what to say on a good day, and that was not a good day yesterday for the DPP's office.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens next. It'll be interesting to see what unfolds. Yeah. You're here to hear first as always, folks, and don't forget to log on to Cayman News Service and look at some of my lovely stories.
Shameless plug for Wendy. Thank you so much, Wendy, for coming on the program. Appreciate it.
Talk to you later, girl. Bye.
All right, have a good one. All right, folks. So there you have it. You know, I don't want this to deter rape victims by any means. I know some people just said to me they're being triggered by this morning's show, and that's understandable. And it's just a really sad situation. Like we said, you know, it is evident that something happened to her. What exactly and what the real details are, at this point, only God knows. Sometimes it's a good idea to get help. And when we say get help, we don't mean from a pastor who is talking about demonic possession and demons and all this kind of stuff. Go to a professional counselor who has, you know, studied abuse, studied psychology, who has, you know, treated people in the past with, you know, techniques that actually are proven to work. You can have your prayers and have your faith. Nobody's saying anything about that. But when you've been through like real trauma, you might need more than just a prayer. You might need more than somebody talking about that person was a demon, right? Get some help. And then the sad thing is, you know, the person was talking about how they found this person to be a pathological liar. I think that the sad thing is, especially when you're younger and these types of things happen to you, they can permeate all aspects of your life, right? Like, you're broken. A lot of us are broken. And you can't necessarily fix yourself. So that's where the professionals come in handy. Oops, wrong message. Sorry. That was a different conversation. So, yeah, it's an unbelievable situation. Ms. Joy Sand, good morning. She says the problem is our little island / world. Most of the politicians are the same in similar ways. They use the government cards for their personal things. They use their positions to use people. They don't stand against their one another because they too have their skeletons. We really need to pray. Well, I'm suggesting we need more than prayer. God gave you common sense and you have the right to vote in this democracy for a reason. Y'all need to start holding people accountable for their behavior. And if you say, Mr. Bush, the jury doesn't believe that he did this, they allowed him to walk. Does that mean that he remains fit for office after almost 40 years in office? I wish that he would gracefully bow out and retire. It doesn't sound like he's going to do that. He's going to use this as a platform to project himself into the next election. And I think that that's a bit unfortunate, really. Caller?
I want to quote a famous person. She recently said, quote, "You need to start holding these politicians accountable," end of quote. I think that needs to be echoed through every part of this country until people understand what it actually means.
Mm-hmm.
The politicians are not going to hold themselves accountable.
Mm-hmm.
That is the job of the public.
Yes. Yep. That was a famous person in Cayman?
That was you. Just now.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. No, but it's a serious issue.
Yeah.
And if the public allow politicians to buy them off, especially during election time, by giving them a little handout here, a little handout there, you don't think they're going to sell you down the river to somebody else later on?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to see this.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question is, if we have people who are the people who are selecting our politicians, that's the voters, not able to understand who is responsible for holding politicians accountable and taking that responsibility seriously, it won't improve.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to see Cayman's politicians be different from those around the region, as one person said,
Mm-hmm.
we have to do differently.
Yeah.
You can't be following a clown and expecting to look like a professor.
Oh, boy.
Take care.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Well, it's a mess for sure. And again, I don't know if the DPP is listening today, but sir, please do yourself a favor and, look objectively at what's happening in your office and, look at your role as a leader and recognize that, sometimes we bite off, as Caymanians would say, you bite off more than you can chew. And so I can't help but wonder if in this case you've bitten off more than you could chew. Maybe you didn't know, what you were in for. Maybe you thought this was like Mickey Mouse hour here in the Cayman Islands. We got a lot of serious issues involving cases and murders and the judiciary and all sorts of stuff. And people have just lost confidence. I had somebody yesterday, a victim in a robbery case, saying that they have no confidence in the DPP's office. That case was mishandled. They lost that case as well. And that case was mishandled, and things that they did, even in terms of the police investigation that the DPP's office should have picked up on. It was just a hot mess. Good morning, caller.
Good morning again, Sandy. I just felt that maybe I should add a little more in terms of maybe trying to help members of the public the way you've been trying to do with respect to offenses of this nature, sexual offenses. Now, you studied law, so you will understand this. There is nothing that will hurt you more in a case of an allegation of sexual assault than reporting it late. It is very important that as soon as it happens,
Mhm.
you try to get to the police to report it. And even if you do not report it maybe to the police, you report it to somebody in authority, your social worker, your counselor. If you can even have a message on your phone to show that you called the police or you left a text message to say, I want to report
Mhm.
a criminal offense. It's very, very important, because there are a lot of cases, as you know, where people can make false allegations.
Mhm.
You've been together for any number of reasons. They say, well, he raped me, when actually that didn't happen.
Mhm.
And then this case in particular was very difficult because, again, in modern times, in fact, even way back, like when I began to prosecute, you had a rape kit. When you go to the police and you say I've been raped, they give you a rape kit. Certain things have to be done. In
Mhm.
modern time now, they need the DNA evidence, okay, to show that this did happen. Because like in this case, for example, if there was a DNA evidence, it doesn't matter actually how shaky her evidence was.
Mhm.
If there was DNA evidence and so on, I mean, that would have been the case.
Yeah.
So people just need to understand that late reporting is one of the worst things. Report it
Yeah.
to somebody in authority. One
And
last very brief
to
point.
be clear, though, I mean, let's say this,
Yeah.
that a lot has changed in 20 years to support rape victims, and even the collection of evidence and stuff has changed significantly.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
to be supportive of anyone who was assaulted that many years ago, unfortunately,
Yeah.
the process would not be what it is today. So I think what we're trying to say is anybody who's listening to this who is sexually assaulted in this day and age, please consider that there are things in place to help you as a victim, even if you initially don't want to pursue prosecution. Still get a rape kit done. Still talk to a professional about what has happened to you. Even sometimes still report it to the police. You have the option of reporting an assault to the police and saying, at this time, I don't know what I want to do with this, and that's okay.
Exactly. And you see, in such cases, again, as you know, because it's a sexual offense, they usually need corroboration, something to confirm from some of the surrounding things that this thing not just happened, but it was done by that particular person. Because especially if there's only one witness, witness, it's only you who is giving the main story. Courts need, the expression they use is that your evidence must be clear and satisfactory in every respect. And in this particular case, it was not clear and satisfactory. My suspicion is something did happen and so on, but there was too many flags, especially for an old case. I just thought I should add that. Thank you, Sandy.
All right. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I always felt that oh, is that I hear the phone, but I don't see it ringing. Huh? Hold on one second. Let's see what's going on here. Oh, here we go. Hello, good morning. Hello.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hi. Hi. Good morning, everyone. I was here thinking that the DDP has been a mess, not just today. I've had incidents with them that sometimes it's so sad that people just eventually give up. And you got to be a strong individual to keep going. My brother had a case in court, and they seized some of his possession. And I had 2 jet skis that I had just brought. They were new brand jet skis. I sent them in to sell them. My brother told him to come and take something else from the compound instead of the jet ski because they were for his sisters. Until this day, we have never been able to get it back. I went to Mr. What is his name? Sam Bolgen. I went to this gentleman. Something.
So who took the jet skis? You're saying the police as evidence?
Well, the case was there, so they seized the jet ski. Well, they seized a car plus the 2 jet skis.
Okay.
But the bailiff went the bailiff went and seized them while the case was going on. I guess to hold him for the amount of money that he was being sued for. Yeah.
Okay.
So he told them that he had other items that was his items must come back and get his items and return his sister items. But because they were new jet ski, Richard Flores was the bailiff at that time, and he took the two jet ski, new ran on the trolley and all, everything, and went with them. I went to the courthouse. My brother went. We tried everything to get those. Mr. Follis, something, the man, I would have to look, the man that was in charge at that time, and also Mr. Bolgen. I went to the two of them. I showed my receipt that I had purchased them. They were mine. They just happened to have come on the compound, and I never got back $1. Mr. Flores rode them jet skis on the waters, never bothered to call me and tell me. I went to the courthouse and I said to them, I said, you know, my personal jet skis is being ridden. They told me they couldn't do nothing. They didn't have no way to keep them, and he was keeping them for them. I never forget that. And you know, I never got back $1. So this hasn't been anything that's new. It's just now that you has given us a social media platform that people are able to come out and speak, is why people is hearing. Before we were like in the darkness, you know, you're fighting your own battle and your own demons, and nobody knows because, you know, they're not going to do anything. You go to every department, you go to the police, they're all the same. So it's like you become a nuisance. Oh, she coming, you know, that you know her. She's a nuisance. You know, so when you go, you're already blackmailed, and they just treat you like, you know, you're a nuisance. When they have your items that cost so much. I never got back $1. So sometimes, like I'm saying to the young lady, sometimes when you victim lies to, some people get confused and these things go on from one thing to the other. You know, and I'm not saying that sometimes the person doesn't lie, but a lot of time to all of this bring confusion because you might have told the person and came and have a way that they like to hide things so much. Oh, uncle can know and this one, and they hide everything in the dark, right? And they don't want to go on like it's a perfect family, a perfect dwelling you're in, and that's how you have our issues. So when they go to go tell, no, don't go tell that to your uncle or your sister or your brother or your friend or whatever. You can't make nobody know. And that child have to bear that. And that child bear that till that destroy a child. Right. And this is the dark.
And like I said, let me make it very clear. I mean, no one who sat there and who, you know, was being fair about the situation would not recognize that this complainant has sustained some level of sexual assault in her life. Like I said, maybe even on more than one occasion, right? That trauma was real. I don't personally believe that it was caused in the circumstances and the situation that she claims, that time period, that person, etc. But I found it shocking that, again, even when she talked about her mother's role in all of this and how her mother has basically never been there for her. I mean, she made her mother sound like an unbelievable person. And to me, that was interesting from the perspective that there is a takeaway from all of this, that we as aunts, uncles, mothers, brothers, whatever, you have got to be prepared to look out for the people in your life, especially a mother, you would think, for your children. And you can't allow your demons, whatever they are, to impact your children. I guess, you know, some mothers are just not capable of being mothers. You know, if you're a drug addict, if you're an alcoholic, you don't have the faculties to be there for your children in the way in which you should. And so I want to say to anybody out there who's struggling with their own issues, and there's a lot of people who this could very well apply to, please do the right thing by way of your children. If that means, you know, giving them to a trusted family member, putting them in the system, sometimes that is better than you not being there, you not being present, and allowing something to happen to them. Because this young lady, I don't care how much counseling she gets, she will go to her grave blaming her mother. And, you know, even the way she said, oh, my mom kind of forced me to give him a ride, you know, as a big adult, almost 30-year-old woman. You know, we didn't believe that that's what happened, but we believe that whatever did happen, she blames her mother for playing a role in that. And the whole thing is just so sad.
I believe when somebody blames their mother and have such a strong say, you know, a lot of times, you know, it takes a lot, because most of the time a relationship between parents is sweet and sour, because, you know, we all have our ups and downs and whatever. But when somebody goes to the extreme, you know, that's a lot, you know, and it says a lot about how deep you're hurt.
Yes.
You know, and that's why as a victim, I wouldn't want her to feel any more hurt, because the nowadays, you know, we think people are strong because we hear their mouths, but people commit suicide. People does things to themselves. And again, you know, we got to think twice when we're speaking, you know, about someone, and they can hear, and people take them for mockery and all of this.
Yeah.
You know, so
and I'm going to tell you, here's a stark reality of it. You know, after her or during her second day of testimony, the jurors were it was so obvious that they did not believe her. Like I said, there were 3 female jurors who were basically smirking and or laughing because they found her testimony so shockingly unbelievable. And she kind of hung around. I mean, something that people may not know. So let me put this out there. There is a representative from the DPP's office who works along with victims. So I don't know what her official title is, but she's like a victim's advocate, right? And she was there. And so, you know, she's the one who comes and escorts, like if the victim has to come off the stand. And the proceedings had to be stopped numerous times because of her emotional outburst. And so, you know, the judge is like, okay, take as much time as you want. Why don't we take a break? Why don't we take a break? So that's why when the defense was like, listen, I was hoping to be done this morning, but we've taken so many breaks with this witness that, you know, we're continuing. And then when she was choosing to be combative with the defense attorney, that was something that obviously did not help her situation either, right? And, you know, for whatever reason, I don't know, she couldn't see that wasn't probably a good idea. I'm not sure. But she came out after the case, right? After her testimony was done, because obviously she couldn't be there beforehand. So afterwards she came, and it kind of looked like she wanted to kind of hang around with other people that were there. And I could tell you, I had to speak to someone and say, don't address her, because they kind of passed this comment, like we're off air now, so I can tell you, oh, you're such a fucking liar, right? Not getting in her face and saying it, but sitting down and saying it, knowing full well that she would have heard them.
No.
And
you know,
and so there was this aggression. And the people who weren't aggressive towards her, the media wasn't aggressive towards her, but I think she pretty much picked up on the vibe, because it was near impossible, that this is not going to go. Nobody, DPP definitely not winning this case. That was the overall vibe and the overall discussion, even before the closing arguments, before the jury got the case, just by listening to her evidence in chief and in cross-examination. And so I agree with you that can have an impact on somebody's mental health. And I think that, you know, somebody kind of said in the comment section, maybe a bit flippant and rude, that maybe she needs to go back where she came from. I actually think that may not be bad advice for this particular individual. And I didn't read a lot of this, because, you know, they went into a lot of details about her having mental health issues and how she likes to throw tantrums and whatever. You know, they sound like they know her, but I don't really know. But what I would definitely say is it might not be a bad idea, because Cayman is so small and sometimes so incredibly unforgiving, generally speaking, that it may not be a bad idea for her to remove herself from the situation. But this is someone who has expressed that she has political aspirations. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it. Like, I think she would legitimately make me question her mental sanity if she decides to run for public office.
Well, everybody's entitled to what they believe in the sense. It's for the person that want to put them in.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody's Canadians entitled to, if they want to think they could run,
Mm-hmm.
it would be for the persons that actually vote them in to think if they're qualified. And this is where we need to get to. We need to decide who's qualified to take us forward to run our island.
But when it comes to people's mental health, they have to take some accountability for protecting that themselves. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if you know, we do have another caller who's trying to get through, but I would say that if you know that oh shoot, I think I accidentally hung up on her. Oh, she must have been a WhatsApp call. I'm sorry, Miss Joyce Ann. But if you know now against this whole backdrop that you'd be exposing yourself to public ridicule and condemnation and fodder and discussion, whatever in the community, don't subject yourself to that. That doesn't make any sense. I don't care how qualified you think you are or not for public office. That would be my recommendation. Of course, take it or leave it, just like anything else. Good morning, caller.
Good morning.
Morning.
It's me again, Miss Sandy.
Hi.
Hi. The caller that just came off the phone,
Mm-hmm.
I agree with her
Mm-hmm.
in what she says.
Yes.
From a person who experienced the failing of the DPP and of the police.
Mm-hmm.
There is numerous cases that persons just randomly orchestrated, and I can say orchestrated because I have no clue of, and I was dragged through the mud. And I make the attempt several times to go forward in reporting the person from DPP and also from the police. And with what I just experienced the other day with the robbery and to how the police officer dealt with me disrespectfully in front of his seniors inside of the detective room. And up to yesterday, I have the confirmation of who purchased my tool. What I'm saying, and I will say it worldwide because I want it to sink in. The connection from the police front deck to the back, to the legal, to the DPP. Cases will orchestrated and cases will come out just the way as it is. Giving them the benefit of the doubt, they feel as if they are too big to listen, and they put me as a trouble because of what? Whenever I go through anything, I reported it because I want to be on the straight line. But the day I can open up fully everything because I have it date by date, well, them damage the phone and they steal another phone that have all the proof, but it's still in my head. Most of these persons that sitting in high places, sitting in the DPP office, in the police force, back to the front deck, they know who they want to go forward with their cases. And when they don't want to go forward with you, they see one orchestrated person. Up to year before last, a lawyer look at me and tell me, oh, you don't know that we are criminals in here and nothing go through the court and come through without we have to say this. And when the case tried, I was as silent.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I don't know what lawyer would say something like that, but they're the ones that don't need to be in the legal system and they help to undermine the system. I have always said, and I want to be very, very clear when I say this. It is my firm belief that in a lot of instances, the system works. Somebody's like, oh, you got all these innocent people northward. I don't think that that's the case at all. Let me be very, very clear. The system has a lot of room for improvement. And so in those areas it needs to be improved upon, The DPP's office is a critical part of the process. The police are a critical part of the process. The court and the way that cases are handled when they actually get to court procedurally and otherwise is an important part of the process. And there are checks and balances along the way. In the case of what I'm saying now about the DPP's office, there are really no checks and balances on him, except for probably the governor. And so they need to now look very, very closely. There has to be, I agree, this public inquiry that happens where his entire office, and the last time it was done, I don't know who did it, but it seemed like it was very rushed. And, they probably took advice from the last guy who was there, Patrick Moran, and they just wrapped it up in a nice little box and said, oh, there is no discrimination. There's no racism. And, you talk to all the staff and they're like, don't know where that really came from. There just has to be an investigation. It should be done by a third party person who has no beef in this one way or the other. You bring somebody in and they can look at the situation, completely objectively and come to their own conclusions. It's difficult sometimes to prove some of these things, but I think at the end of the day, Simon Davis' record now speaks for itself. And this isn't, for me, this isn't about McKeeva Bush. This part of the question here, or the situation, isn't about him. This is about a DPP's office that's failing and that the people, generally speaking, have lost confidence in. Thank you so much, caller. Appreciate the call.
I want to ask you one question.
Mm-hmm.
The one question I asked, right, is because I see that you know a lot about the law. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Is it right that when you have all your evidence and you go to the police station with it, instead of they look at the evidence and do their detective work properly, they're going to tell you, oh, we don't need any receipt, and you don't have enough evidence, and you have to just call it a loss. And they interrogate you as if you are the perpetrator instead of the victim. Is that correct? That is a correct way of doing things?
I mean, I wouldn't think so. Now, mind you, just because as a layperson you think that there's enough evidence, the police don't necessarily have to agree with you. What I do find about that is so incredibly interesting is from my own experience, even with my own cases, and even with this case, they have tried cases that they had no evidence whatsoever.
Right.
They brought cases that got thrown out. So it makes you wonder, well, if that's your MO, putting forward cases that don't have a leg to stand on, why not do it for everybody? But anyway, caller, you'll have to leave me there.
The conclusion I come with.
Yeah, you'll have to leave me there.
I reluctantly don't want to make a report. All right, have a good day.
Okay, dear. All right, bye-bye. All right, let me see here. This person says, like the charges against my son should never have been charged. There's no case against him, shaking my head. I don't believe it either from what I read. It sounds like the mother knew what took place when she was a child and she's not going anywhere. She will run for office. I really feel like she's delusional. I feel like she thinks this case would help her win the election. As you see, she's making the rounds on social media and various places as an advocate. Okay. Let me see here. This person says, Wendy modified potty mouth is funny. I understand Mac is having a meeting tomorrow at A.L. Thompson's parking lot. So yeah, I mean, he's going to ride this, what a hot mess. Somebody said, Sudhir Singh was a Trinidadian. I think she done resign and left. I'm pretty sure she's gone already. Candia James is assistant DPP and has acting and done the job well. She's also from Trinidad. So those two young ladies in the DPP's office. Somebody said the phone giving problems. What phone? Am I supposed to know about your phone problems? I'm not sure. Okay. Well, all I can tell you folks is this is a hot mess and then some. This other person says, I agree 100% with you. The one thing she should have remembered was the year. Please cut off Johan, says this person. We don't need no calls during the narrative. How on earth they brought this case? This is pretty shocking. What a hot mess. All right. Just trying to see if there's any other messages. Oh, somebody reminded me about Prime Day. They said, thank you, Lord, for another day. Good morning. Thank you, Lord, for another day. Ready, set, Prime Day shopping, baby. Oh, yeah. I gotta go look at Amazon. All right. We have some other things that we'll talk about tomorrow. We got to talk about this heat, which is setting all kind of records again this year. Pretty crazy. Again, victims, you gotta do what you gotta do. And I don't want any victim who might have been triggered this morning to think that it's a hopeless situation. We're having the discourse, we're changing the narrative in this country for victims, and we have to continue on that road no matter what. I think that that's really quite critical. Good morning, caller.
Morning again.
Hi, Danny.
I want to say that I think you did a really good job today.
Thank you.
Discussing a very sensitive issue. And I could see where some people were a bit upset with some of the things you said. But I think that you did I think you were as neutral as one could be. I think you were as fair as one could be. I think you were willing to talk about important, difficult issues, despite some people not wanting the discussion to happen. But I think it's really important that in times like this, that we, like how I think you very sensitively handled the situation, and the conversation was necessary. And I think you did a really good job on it. And maybe one day you will be a lawyer.
Oh God. I was going to tell you, that's like being a politician. Don't wish that on me. we passed that stage now. It ain't going to happen.
Well,
but thank you.
It might be honorary.
Oh, Lord. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Right.
As I always say, you're right where you're supposed to be. And God knows this was a whirlwind of how we got here doing this talk show. But I'm right where I'm supposed to be. And I'm more effective. It's so funny, but somebody quite high in the judiciary said it to me a couple months ago. They're like, you should really become a lawyer. Like, you analyze things a certain way. And I was like, nope, that ship has sailed. I remember when I was in high school and that good old Judge Castor said, you've got really good advocacy skills. You definitely should become a litigator. And I thought, yeah, but your advocacy skills can be used in so many different ways. Here I am now advocating on behalf of the people of the Cayman Islands. And there's no more important job than that, as far as I'm concerned, quite frankly. So, yep. No lawyers as happy as I am. I can tell you that. They stressed out and killing themselves working, honey chill. And still wondering at the end of the day if they're making a difference. So it is what it is. It's a hot mess and then some. All right, tomorrow's show, please tune in. I want to talk about the heat. Let me show you all this. We're gonna talk about this tomorrow. But look at this little cup. This little cup, you can see the little line where it started to melt. This was in my car on Sunday. Was it Sunday? Yeah, Sunday. No, Saturday. I didn't go anywhere Sunday. Saturday, I went somewhere and I got a little water cup, had a little sip of water, and this melted. Look at it in my car. So when I got in the car yesterday, because I didn't go anywhere on Sunday, so I didn't drive. When I got in the car yesterday, I was sitting there looking at this in the cup holder. It looks like glass. I'm like, who was in my car drinking out of a glass and left it in here? Honey child, this melted, which is ordinarily pretty soft plastic. This is so hard at the top now. The heat melted it and reformed the top. And this is, I've never seen plastic melt in my car before. But this is what happened between Saturday and Monday morning, or late Monday morning when I went in the car. I was like, wow. And it's hard as a rock. I'm like, oh my gosh, folks, it is dangerously hot out there. Please, if you work outside, protect yourselves. We're going to talk about the heat tomorrow. I understand that there is actually emergency planes, like air ambulance and stuff that can't even take off because of the heat. Isn't that crazy? Please be careful. You know, don't go out running in the middle of the day and doing outside activities at certain hours. It is just too hot. Anyway, we'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Until then, please be safe. Tomorrow's Wednesday. We do have some guests from Swanky Band who are going to be joining us. So please tune in for that segment. They've been up to a lot of positive things, and they're going to be sharing some of that with us. And then we'll have some open mic opportunities to talk about a few other things that are happening in the community as well. All right, that's all she wrote. See you mañana.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Cold Hard Truth on Bobo 89.1 FM. Cayman's #1 talk show is live weekdays from 7:30 a.m. Never miss an episode again. Watch anytime on CMR's Facebook and YouTube channels for the latest show episodes. Don't forget to follow us online on our social media channels and visit CaymanMarlRoad.com for all the latest news and community happenings.